MVP of every team that I coached of these little guys. And then
smoked everybody.
Right around 8th grade, they started to, transition from little pipsqueaks that I could dominate to, like, pretty soon I was like pushed off the court by 10th grade. Like, they didn't even want me to play pickup anymore because I couldn't guard anybody. So that was the end of my era there. But now I'm really focused on sprinting and trying to get stronger and, have more and more foray into strength training. I wish I had when I was a triathlete, because it would have helped me a lot, because we didn't touch weights because we were too tired from doing all that extreme endurance training. And now I think the evolution of training is realizing that there can be some great benefit to kind of mixing and matching and not be so extreme with just the endurance, even though that's your main athletic goal.
How do we end up at, getting to this point? I think it happens quite often with a power lifter or like a bodybuilder. Really anyone that ends up starting to compete in something, the competition itself, which we may have started to, be in better shape, maybe feel better about ourselves. I think when you're young, you're not really necessarily thinking about like direct impact of like overall health or longevity, but you do want to like look better, right? And you want to live better and you want to feel better. And so it kind of starts with that. You're like, oh, I just would love to go to the gym and like have my arms be a little bit bigger, or something like that. Maybe that's the thought that you have when you're 15 and you start lifting weights or something. And maybe, in your case, you're thinking of, taking just some simple running cross-country stuff into being like a triathlete. What's the problem? Like what happens to us? How do we get lost? Is competition itself a problem?
It can easily be a problem. And I think the more serious you are about it, the higher level you rise to, the more you put your health at risk. Ask any NFL player walking around 10, 20, 30 years after their career. It's a huge sacrifice. And in the case of triathlons, this has been an alarming recent revelation that many of my peers that I raced with on the circuit and in the endurance sports in general are coming up with blown out hearts years after their seemingly the picture of health and fitness on the planet with their glistening lean body on the cover of the magazine, and now this condition of atrial fibrillation, which is traced to repeated inflammation and scarring of the heart muscle from extreme training, where you're going out every day and pegging your heart rate up at 150, 160 beats per minute for 5 hours, especially in the sport of cycling, because you can sit down and put in hours and hours of working that heart at a high heartbeat, getting up the next day, being able to do it again and again. And it doesn't, it's not a pretty picture after decades of doing that.
What does the worst of it look like? Like when you're competing, I've heard like cyclists say this before, like sometimes you watch these long races and if they fall off the bike, like they don't get back on and go again, and watching it on TV as just somebody watching it that's never cycled like that before, you're like, I have no idea why that guy can't get back up and get on there. But a lot of it has to do with, first of all, they may have been racing for days, which is understandable. But they're very depleted, and they want to weigh a certain weight to be on that bike. Like they want to be a low body weight. So they're probably like under eating. And so what does this look like when you're competing as a professional triathlete?
Well, you have to hit that point. You have to go right out to the edge where you're have a risk of stepping over the edge and getting an upper respiratory illness, for example, or getting an injury from your lower extremities from running, and then that sets you back, and that's a terrible occurrence. So I was deathly afraid of catching a cold when I was racing on the pro circuit, because I knew that no matter what, my training would be subpar for 2 weeks. The first week was super lousy and you probably shouldn't even be exercising. And then the second week, you're coughing stuff out and your times aren't as right and you just don't have the right energy. So, trying not to cross over that line was a really difficult challenge, because it so often would come with all the global jet travel combined with the hard training. But so I had to get smarter and smarter over time to realize that one extra workout that's so glorified by Hollywood movies and come on, Rock, you got one more, you can do it, that kind of stuff, a lot of times could be counterproductive. And I also feel like when it's time to compete and when it's time to really put yourself there on a peak performance effort, that you can rise to the occasion and bring out something special if you're a healthy, happy person, and not necessarily having to go there over and over in training. You don't have to exactly approximate the challenge of the competition day after day in training. You don't have to ever do it. You just have to develop all the parts. In my case, I was swimming, biking, and running, right? So I'd put these workouts together, but none of the workouts were as impressive as race day, and that was by design, where I could do something special and harness all my resources.
What are some principles that you try to help athletes understand? Because when you were just touching on high level competition and longevity and wondering if they're both something that can be achieved. But when you think about that, like we look at athletes like LeBron, he had a groin injury this season, right? But still, he's probably one of the NBA players who's had the most games with least injuries. Tom Brady, he's been at it for a long time. And these are athletes who've been able to keep themselves off the injury block. How can you let athletes know that they don't have to have every single session be like death, and when they're in a pool of sweat where they feel like they got a great workout in, even though that's probably something that's damaging them more in the long run? And is it possible to get to high levels of competition without that?
Yeah, those are two awesome questions. And the first part, I remember, many times having this come to Jesus conversation with clients and saying, hey, man, what are you all about? What does this whole thing mean to you? Because I'm looking at your questionnaire that you submitted to me when we signed up to work together, and it says, want to be a role model to my kids and achieve goals and balance my busy life as an executive. And it's like, that doesn't really line up with you heading to that race with 101-degree fever because you already paid your entry fee and you didn't want to pull the plug. And so anytime we're compromising our health or going away from, sensibility, then what's it for? Is it for feeding your ego demands? Is it because of peer pressure, insecurity, or the need to vent out nervous energy because other areas of your life suck? And those are important conversations we have to have with ourselves of why are you doing this extra workout when it's really not meant to be? And it deep down. Your intuition is telling you, geez, I'm heading down the wrong path here, but I still keep banging my head against the wall. And that goes from recreational athlete all the way up to the elite athletes and the guys. I'm friends with Tim DeFrancesco. He was the Lakers strength and conditioning trainer for 10 years.
Yeah, we know Tim. He's been to super training before. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah. And I asked him, this might be private knowledge, but anyway, I said, so, when you come in and you get these draft picks, these players, I go, what percentage of them buy into what you have to say? And how many of them are just out there partying and spending their money? And he gave me some percentages. And the thing that they don't understand, his insight was like, when you sign in for the NBA, you're making millions of dollars. You're a kid coming out of college and life's pretty good. You got your $12 million contract. But now, as we know, if you can just make it through your rookie contract, which is a few years, right? 3 or 4 years, then you can sign these max deals if you perform even at a competent level, not superstar, but you can get massive amounts of money that dwarfs anything you did to that point if you just get in there and do the work and stay injury-free and be a good teammate and all those things. And, there's a huge percentage of even the top professional athletes that don't have that whole picture going for themselves, and they're compromising not only their longevity, forget about that, just their general health and their career longevity. But I guess the next part of the question, Nsima, was, can you do this stuff and still promote longevity? And I think for the most part, you're getting up to 90% level, and then you're going to make some sacrifices if you want to be an elite performer. But I don't think I think there's a way to do it, like LeBron has shown, and Tom Brady and some other guys, some of the great runners like Meb Keflezighi, in case anyone wants to hear about somebody other than Tom Brady and LeBron James. Meb Keflezighi is the greatest American marathon runner, but distinctive about his career is he lasted until he was 41 years old, running the marathon, the most grueling, craziest training regimen, which is unheard of. These guys, crash and burn in their 20s and they're gone. They get an Olympic medal and you never hear from them again. So he was able to, create this lifestyle and eat the right diet and get all the therapy and continue to perform at a world-class level in the marathon. So arguably, I'm looking at him at 42, 43. He's retired now. He's probably doing pretty well because he was able to, to deliver these world-class times for so long.
What did he do that was different? Do you know?
I think smarter training nowadays, and the folks up in Portland, Oregon, Mo Farah is arguably the greatest distance runner we've ever seen on the planet. He's top 10 of all time in the 1500, like the mile race, and he's also one of the top marathoners ever, but he won multiple Olympic gold medals in the 5,000 and 10,000 in the Olympics and the World Championship. So he doubled, and no one's ever done that. And so, these Africans that are running based in Kenya, and there's massive training camps of them, and a few of them rise to world-class level, and they perform well, and they win Olympic medals, but you don't see that longevity because the training and the lifestyle is still rudimentary. So you have the best of the genetics that we find in East Africa, where there's a concentration of the highest talent in distance running, just like from West African ancestry is the absolute dominance in the 100 meters and the explosive events. 496 of the top 500 times in the history of 100 meters are athletes who trace their ancestry to West Africa. So that genetic factor is pretty big, okay? But so you take East African genetics and then bring them to the Nike Performance Lab, where they're doing some of their runs in the water. Have you seen these water treadmills where you're immersed in a coating of water, like a bag, and you're running, but you're getting 20% less impact or 30% or whatever. If your leg's a little sore, you're still getting the workout in. And Meb was famous going on the beach in San Diego, where he's from, on the beach bike path with the outdoor elliptical machine, the Elliptigo, they called it. Oh, look at this. Very quick action water treadmills. Now you got to find the Elliptigo for the viewers on YouTube.
So you can get a similar stimulus with less impact is kind of the basis of something like that?
Yeah, man. I had only one really bad running injury in my triathlon career, because you could always balance the training. And
I love stuff like that. That's great.
And I got a running vest, so it was like a flotation vest, and I ran in the pool, and I found I could do a much more high-intensity workout in the water because of the lack of pounding. So I'd do, 10-mile repeats in the water, which would be 5 minutes running hard at full stride and really working through the water. And that was something I could never do on land. It would be too hard. I'd maybe do 5-mile repeats would be a great workout. So the cardiovascular and even the muscular conditioning was as good as you can get to approximate it. But again, we know that if you're not out there pounding or doing exactly what you're doing, you're going to lose a little bit of that. But it's a complementary approach, better than sitting on the couch if you're trying to, run in the Olympic marathon.
Have you seen the ones that use like air? Like they almost like kind of fill up like a balloon, and you're kind of just like floating instead of using the water?
Oh, no. I haven't seen those.
Rehab once.
Yeah. They have them. I've seen a couple of them here in Sacramento.
Yeah.
And you said Elliptigo?
Elliptigo. Yeah.
You could just suck in a bunch of helium too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What you're saying is like we've been seeing that a lot in powerlifting too. A lot of people are now taking on the idea of doing a lot more submaximal work, because typically it used to be that they'd be always doing triples, doubles, and singles all the time. But now there are a lot of powerlifters doing more 70, 80% work, and then they're touching those 90% every few weeks and keeping them in to continue getting stronger. It just seems like that's the overarching principle with all of these sports. Figuring like spreading out that maximal work so that you don't touch it too often, but you touch it enough so that you can continue to make progress without getting injured.
Yeah, here's my crystal ball for the future of how we're going to continue to break records and
here we
evolve.
go. You heard it on our podcast first.
So I think that particularly in the endurance sports, where there's this question of how much volume you can do, and then you can't run more than 140 miles a week as a human. That's 20 miles a day. And the elite marathoners, they're there now. They've been there for many years. You're not going to be able to train twice as long and break records in running or triathlon.
Not for any sustained period of time.
Right. I mean, just there's not going to be a Hawaii Ironman winner that's training 60 hours a week instead of 30, which is the top athletes now. It just doesn't compute, right? But I think what's going to happen is we're going to have these blocks of training where the body is pushed to extreme levels by going, let's say, 3 days in a row, riding the bicycle for 10 hours straight in the mountains and coming back and doing it again the next day and the next day. And then they're going to go put them in a medically induced coma, and they're going to go sit in a float tank for 48 hours. And there are probably going to be some pharmaceuticals involved, but to have that deep recovery that probably the athletes today aren't really getting because they're trying to hit these weekly schedules, which I think are sometimes still ill-advised. Like I think I learned the hard way in my triathlon career. I had to pull the plug for a couple weeks now and then. Just go, I'm going to stop training because I'm in a downward spiral, and it took a lot of strength to say, nope, I'm out. And then I'd come back when I felt that natural regenerative mindset, as well as feeling the body come back. But everyone's afraid to do it because you feel like you're going to lose these gains. But I think if we increase the severity of the stress and rest cycles for all athletes, powerlifting, I mean, I don't have to know anything about your sport. If you increase the severity of your stress and rest cycles such that on your high points, which is when we should measure and judge how you're doing, on my high point, I could ride this many hours on the bike and climb 17,000 feet in the Sierras, and that's my best workout. What'd you do the next day? What'd you do the next day? I don't know. I rode to the grocery store and back. That's going to have an athlete that eventually makes breakthroughs versus someone who says, yeah, consistently I ride my bike 3 hours every single day. I never miss a day. Oh, good for you. You know, that's not going to fly once you get to the elite level. To get from the couch to get in shape, yeah, get your butt in the gym every single day and move some iron around. You're going to get in shape. Then what? You're going to hit the ceiling and go, how do I get better? Is harder, hard workouts and easier, easy workouts.
Okay.
That was summed up pretty good right there. I really like what you just said right there. The thing that frustrates me is I think a lot of times, you know, people just think like CrossFit is CrossFit and powerlifting is powerlifting, and this is the way that we got to powerlift, and this is the way we got to do endurance running, and this is the way we got to do cycling, this is the way we got to do swimming. And it's super frustrating to watch because it's like, no, a lot of these things, there's so much crossover going on here. And, you know, sometimes somebody like yourself who comes on our show, somebody might not listen to it because you're not a former Mr. Olympia winner. Right? Or my...
Don't listen to me. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean,
we have
though?
things to offer.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of crossovers, a lot of benefit. And I always say this too. I think, you know, whatever sport that you're in, it would probably be great if you explored doing some stuff from other sports. So if you're a power lifter, it would be great to figure out some way of getting your heart rate up and some way of having something sustained, whether it, I don't know if running would be great for a lot of guys who are over 250 that haven't run in a long time. But let's figure out something.
How about yoga or something?
Yeah, something different,
Can
right?
help
And
everybody.
what about a bodybuilder trying some powerlifting, or a powerlifter trying some Olympic lifting, or a triathlete, you know, trying some powerlifting, right? And have you utilized any powerlifting when you were a triathlete or any strength training?
I wish I had. I just, you know, it was a missing element in the training system because there wasn't enough energy there. So
just working out too hard on the three main things you had to worry about.
yeah, and I think if you're going for a 2-hour or longer endurance event, your incremental gains that I'm going to get from improving my deadlift from 200 to 250, I mean, that's impressive, but it might not be the best return on investment when I only have this much energy.
Right.
And that's a mistake a lot of athletes make. Like I remember, you know, people ask me all the time, "Hey, is yoga good for my triathlon?" I go, "Yeah." How about strength training? Yeah. How about you know, over distance rides? Yeah. How about sprint interval training? It's all good. It's all going to deliver a fitness benefit. But then you have to go, okay, what's the best use of my time and energy and my return on investment? And in the endurance sports, it happens to be that spending more time building an aerobic base and doing workouts that are really comfortably paced so that you get better at fat burning without the interruption of the stress response and the breakdown and the burnout that comes from high intensity exercise. What happens is the athlete's allowed to build a higher fitness base, and then when it is time to do a high intensity workout, they're going to perform so much better because they've put this time in to work that aerobic foundation. And so even someone in a explosive sport like the CrossFit Games or something, I mean, I watched that thing, I was blown away. The endurance required to come back and do another heat or come back the next day and do the next round, that athlete has to have a tremendous base of endurance rather than just being explosive to be able to do the required thing that took 2 minutes and then, you know, go away.
What's an example workout of what you were just speaking of there? Something that's high intensity enough where you can build that anaerobic threshold or that aerobic threshold without building up so much fatigue that you can't like work out the next day. What's an example of what that looks like?
So here's the big one. If this is new information, it's going to change your life if you're out there trying to throw in aerobic work, but not doing it with the proper framework. So there's a heart rate cutoff that represents, it's called the maximum aerobic heart rate. Dr. Phil Maffetone is the leader in this movement. He's been pitching this for many years. And the calculation is 180 minus your age in beats per minute. So you do your formula. If you're 30 years old, 180 minus 30 is 150. And so that would be your cutoff. You did not exceed that heart rate in order to get a proper aerobic training session. If you do, then you start drifting into the anaerobic metabolism, greater burning of glucose and less burning of fat. So what you want to hit is this point where you're experiencing maximum fat oxidation per minute. So you're burning the most fat at this heart rate, and if you were to go any faster, you're going to burn more calories, but you're going to deprioritize fat, and you're going to start burning more and more and more glucose as you get up to a glycolytic workout. A high intensity workout is going to be all glucose, or the other fuels that you do for really explosive stuff. But this cutoff point is really important, because after you exceed that, the workout starts to become a little too stressful and a little too stimulating of glucose burning, which is going to affect your appetite and your ability to burn fuels at rest. So if you become this fat burning beast, like Mark Sisson talks about, you have the diet component too that supports that. So you're eating a nice fat adapted diet, minimizing that intake of simple carbohydrates that's causing the fat burning to shut off. Now you're getting good at burning fat during workouts, and you're getting good at burning fat because of your diet. And then you have tremendous endurance, to the extent that if it's time to speed up, let's say in a race situation, I'm so comfortable running at 6-minute miles, it's time to speed up. I can speed up to 5-minute miles in a race situation. But training day in and day out, trying to run 5-minute miles because that's what I want to race at, you're going to tailspin into, just like you talked about with the power lifters going up to 90% all the time. It doesn't work. And so it requires this tremendous patience and a change in mindset that you don't need to push yourself every day to get better. And in fact, especially in endurance, slowing down or backing off, if we want to make the analogy to any athlete, can generate tremendous improvement, because that's how the body works. It regenerates and gets fitter through stress and rest balance.
It's really hard to do in a group setting. And I imagine, like, if you were running with somebody or cycling with somebody, it's kind of nice to, like, be next to each other, I'm sure, right? Even though you're probably not talking a whole lot because you're training, but it's kind of nice to have your buddy next to you. And if someone's, faster or more talented than you and they're way ahead, you might be trying to keep up, and your training might be suffering. They might be going too slow. You might be going too fast, right?
Absolutely. I mean, these group workouts are the essence of endurance training, and it's so wonderful to have that social connection. And those workouts are really good for the fittest people in the pack, and they're terrible for the least fit people in the pack. And they're probably not very good for the majority of the pack. And that's just... It's too bad. I talked to you before we got recording about my college running career, which I had such great aspirations as a high school runner. I did well. I went off to Division I program, UC Santa Barbara, and I got destroyed. And the reason is because these fifth-year seniors who were mature 23-year-old men were trashing me every single day just with basic training, because I was a young kid trying to, transition from high school running program to college. And so the workout was well structured and thought out by the coach who was planning our season and trying to build us but it wasn't good for me to hang with my teammates. I should have been individually coached and said, hey, you young scrubs over there, I want you guys to run 3 miles less and slower pace, and we're going to build you up naturally over time to where maybe you'll be the person at the front of the pack when you're 23-year-old fifth-year senior. Yeah. I
feel like sometimes the other countries do a better job with some of these things where we're maybe wrapped up in some of the wrong stuff, like a lot of the Russian lifters, they will bench, squat, and deadlift in the same training session. That's very uncommon here in the United States, and there's a lot of reasons for it. I think the evolution of, like, bodybuilding equipment and just even talk about bodybuilders and a lot of strength influence coming from bodybuilders, and even the way that gyms are set up. A gym would be set up where it would have, a leg press, a leg extension, leg curl, squat rack all near each other. So people started to kind of superset and go back and forth between these exercises. And it became very uncommon to train optimally. Instead, you would train maybe you would train to, like, reduce time, or maybe you would train to kind of induce muscle mass, but it wasn't necessarily regardless of how the gym was set up. And they're also they seem to train regardless of, it appears they seem to train regardless of the amount of weight on the bar. They're not obsessed with the weight on the bar, where here in America, I feel like somebody feels like they have to have, 405 on the bar. And it's just because of, like, that's the amount when you have 4 plates on each side, or you have 315, you have 3 plates on each side. And you feel like you have to either lift that or with the 25s. But the Russian athletes that we see that dominate, even though they're still lifting in kilos and they might get excited about a 400-kilo squat, or whatever it is that they're lifting, it seems like they're less attached to that, and they seem like they're just more about like, I don't really care what's on the bar. It just needs to be a weight that I can lift optimally, and it's not a load that's going to be maximal. It's not going to stress me out. It's not going to overstress me. It's kind of some of the stuff that you're talking about.
Yeah, same with Nsima mentioning the doing the varied activities. Steve Nash is great about this because he had such a long history in soccer, and it informed so much of his basketball style to see the entire court and do those backwards passes and things that he came from that soccer experience. And he emphasizes strongly, like for the young players, we're so focused on the highly competitive youth basketball scene and youth soccer scene, and here we are getting our ass kicked in the men's World Cup and not even making it to the 32 round in the World Cup, getting beat by Trinidad and Tobago, population less than Sacramento, California.
Wow.
It's embarrassing. So why is this happening when these kids are getting pulled out of their neighborhood community experience and going to the competitive soccer? If you want to be good, you got to go on the comp team and travel around, and it's a year-round program, so you can't fit in other sports. And same with basketball. The AAU scene is crazy. It's ridiculous. Yeah, we see one-and-done athletes ready to go pro because they've been developed so quickly. But again, talking about Tim, like he gets these draft picks in, and he does these assessments of their basic fitness competency, like their form going down for a squat and coming back up. And a lot of these athletes have not been properly trained because they've been playing only one sport, basketball, since they were 13, not enough rest in between the seasons. There's constant, repetitive stress on the joints, rather than in the old days. Tom Brady took off his football uniform and went out to the baseball field, and everybody else were all of them were multi-sport athletes back in the day. LeBron had to kick him off the football team in 10th grade because he was too good at basketball, which is probably a smart idea because you don't want some guy taking out the 6'8" tight end when he's catching a 12-yard pass for random Cleveland high school. But it's a huge issue in the youth world, and then now we're talking about adults. Like, yeah, if that's all I did was triathlon training. And then when the rains came and we had to go get sandbags at the store and lift the sandbags and help the old lady next door to protect her house from flooding, the next day I'd wake up from lifting 25-pound sandbags and my back was so sore and my left knee also got kinked there. And I'm like, I can't do that anymore because it's going to affect my training. But it's like I was good for nothing except for those three things. And I think overall these athletes that have the broader fitness competencies can rise to the top and also prevent injuries and have longer careers.
I'm wondering, because there are a lot of powerlifters that are listening in and a lot of powerlifters here.
What's up, powerlifters?
Yeah. What's up? Anyway, there are a lot of guys here that are doing something called fat shaming, and it was like by Jesse Burdick, where they go out, they'll do like maybe some sprints, or they'll do mile walks with kettlebells or something.
It's us fat shaming ourselves.
Yeah.
Why is it called fat shaming? That's
Why is it called fat shaming?
Just because it's a funny name, funny title. It's us fat shaming ourselves, like identifying like, I'm too fat, I'm going to go outside and do something. It's a joke in powerlifting. We all kid around about getting fat because even just the act of getting fat makes you stronger. Just like when you're on your bike, like the act of not eating makes you perform better, which sounds completely crazy because you don't have the nutrients in your body. But if you weigh less, it's easier to tote yourself around the bike. If we just weigh more, it's easier to squat, bench, deadlift.
And that's why that a lot of them are sometimes scared of doing cardio because they feel like, if I do too much cardio, it's going to affect my strength. So first off, what are some modalities of cardio that you think would be really beneficial for helping them drop body fat, but also maintain high levels of power output in the gym? Because you wouldn't imagine that they'd go out and run 6 miles, but what should they think about adding?
I think the aerobic component would be an obvious first choice, where you're not out there stressing yourself on a sport that you don't care about and you don't intend to compete in. And you see these people huffing and puffing down the bike trail or whatever, and it's like, dude, honey, what are you doing? Why are you killing yourself out here? You're going to hate it. I'm not going to see you here next year, because they don't have that sensibility that it's not supposed to be pain and suffering when you're going out for a run in the neighborhood. Now, you got to get the heart rate monitor and see where you stand with your aerobic conditioning. And for many people, a run is going to be a jog walk. And that's a perfect aerobic training session. That's the same training effect as Meb Keflezighi, the guy in San Diego, the marathoner, is running 5-minute and 20-second mile. He's flying past you like you've never seen, but he's jogging and talking to his, carrying on a conversation as a sign that you're in the aerobic zone, as opposed to going too hard and huffing and puffing and getting red in the face. So the strength and power athletes that are coming and wanting to dabble in aerobic conditioning, slower and easier is better. And check that heart rate with that 180 minus your age formula. You will be shocked at how slow it is. It's almost frustrating, especially for endurance people. It's so frustrating to hear that beep go off at almost every workout. I've been doing this 30 years. I still get the beeper going off on a short little hill going up from the bottom of the levee to the top, an 18-foot hill. It's going to beep. So you walk and you be patient and you make sure that you stay in that fat burning zone, and then you get finished with the workout and you feel refreshed and invigorated, and you've kick-started the fat burning process that carries on for hours after, rather than exhausted yourself and want to go have a Ben & Jerry's 7-Eleven at the end of your run.
And for a lot of the athletes that haven't really messed with it much, having their heart rate up even, at like 135 or something, it might be hard. Might be hard for them just because they're not used to it, and to do it for a sustained period. How long, what should this look like? Should this be like a 10 or 20 minute like walk run type of deal? Like if you feel good enough to run, go for it. If you feel good enough to keep a fairly fast paced walk, stay with that.
The heart rate's going to be the regulator. So you just don't want to exceed that number. And I'm going to guess for most people who are not competent endurance athletes or carry a lot of weight, like you said, a brisk walk is a fantastic aerobic training session. Same with pedaling the bike if you want to do low impact. But I think eventually you'd get up to the point where you could do some weight-bearing activity and still make it aerobic. So you're going to be slow jogging. That's the cool thing about aerobic training process is you get more and more efficient burning fat and getting those aerobic energy-producing enzymes going, that over time, it might start out as a brisk walk now and you're going to hear the beep, and then 6 months later, you're going to be able to do a slow jog and you're going to hear the beep. So you're going to get more efficient. You're going to run faster speed at the same heart rate, but the heart rate is always the regulator because that's determining what kind of metabolism you're using, and you want to use fat-burning metabolism in this example rather than a sugar-burning run, which is going to get you right to Ben & Jerry's. The show is sponsored by Slingshot, but not Ben & Jerry's. Okay.
How critical is form when it comes to a triathlete? Like what I see a lot in powerlifting is we get a lot of questions here about recovery. And people like Nsima does jujitsu along with coming in here and lifting some heavy weights. And people will say like, how do you mix the two? And they're kind of curious on, or for myself, I do a lot of, powerlifting type stuff. But I do a lot of conditioning stuff after the workout. And people are kind of confused. I've been doing it for a long time, so obviously that helps. But what I've noticed is a lot of the people that ask these questions, their form and technique's not locked in. And like we're already talking about, they're going too hard. And I talk about that a lot. Like, have the strength to pull some damn weight off the bar. Have the courage to do that.
Hey, let me see you pull a plate off the bar. Oh, very good technique.
Yeah. Right.
Bend at the knees, put it back on the rack.
Right.
Nice.
Right, but technique seems to be a huge thing, because if we're getting all crooked on a bench or a squat, like you're going to feel it in your knee or your elbow, and I'd imagine it must be critical on as a triathlete doing these endurance runs or doing some of these things. It's got to be a big factor.
Well, it's more critical in golf or swimming, right? A hugely technique-dependent sport. So swimming's the best example of, like, you can go in there and fight that water like a real beast and put out a ton of calories and heart rate up to the roof, and you're going to get passed by a skinny little 10-year-old girl who I used to train with the junior national team members down in Los Angeles. So these girls were like 10 to 13, and I was in their lane as one of the top triathletes in the world, and they would smoke me. They had no muscle mass, anything, but they had incredible efficiency through the water, like little hummingbirds just floating along and never getting tired. It was pretty awesome. But cycling, you sit on the bike, you pedal, don't move your upper body. That's your tip of the day, right? You just keep your hips level and pedal the bike. It's not a technique-dependent sport. Running's a little different because you're weight-bearing. And so you have impact trauma with every stride. And if you don't have a balanced center of gravity at all times, where all of your strides land under a stable and balanced center of gravity, where you have a straight and elongated spine, and every time you run, you're landing in the same, in the same position. You're not extending out and moving that center of gravity back and forth. You're not doing these common errors like heel striking, which means that your center of gravity is lost that perfect position over a midfoot landing. So there's some things you can learn with even just slow jogging that'll greatly improve your efficiency and minimize the injury risk. And that's why this minimalist shoe movement has been such a big deal in running scene, because if you, for example, take your shoes off, and I'm going to ask you to go run on a paved road with no shoes, you're going to exhibit a tremendous improvement in your running technique instantly, because the penalty is so severe for running on pavement with bare feet that you're going to be forced to all of a sudden be running like a deer and be light on your feet and not making those technique errors, because when you do, you'll slam into the ground in your heel, or you'll feel impact in your knee. So to correct form, you want to be light on your feet like a dog or a deer. Watch your dog run along, and you see how the dog is landing beautifully with the balanced center of gravity, 4 legs instead of 2. But, great lesson to see how the animals run. And so if we can just imagine ourselves being lighter on our feet and more graceful with our stride, and trying to stand up tall throughout the running stride. I have a video on YouTube. It's like Brad Kearns running technique instructions. You can see me talk you through it, but that's the basic one for a weight-bearing sport, pretty important.
So when you're talking about, hitting your heel on the ground, are you more so meaning that when people are running, they should more so be landing on the ball of their feet with every step and never really landing on heel toe?
Yeah, but you need like a slow motion video camera to really understand this and convey it. And so you probably don't even need that thought in your mind, because it happens so quickly. But what really happens, the way that we absorb impact as humans, is we land on the midfoot, and then the Achilles tendon in the heel will actually, collapse and touch the ground. And that's the way to absorb shock. So we dissipate the shock through our midfoot, as well as allowing that foot to come down to the ground. And then the spring occurs the same way, where we snap the Achilles tendon and launch off the midfoot. So it's they say, are you a heel striker or a midfoot striker? And it's a little bit, there's the guy teaching you how to run. Yeah. So it happens so fast that I like to convey the thought differently, so that I don't mess people up thinking about where on their foot they're landing. But naturally, you're going to land just before your heel touches your midfoot. You can't even see sometimes how quick it is. Same with Olympic marathoners.
Yeah. It's just barely. The heel is just barely hitting the ground. It's real.
And then springing. Quickly. So, the way to run with more efficient technique and lighter on your feet is you want that foot on the ground and off the ground as quick as possible. And when you allow that foot to slap and stay on the ground for too long, then all your energy is going into the ground rather than being used as a spring force, with the Achilles tendon doing what it's supposed to do.
How many years did you train without the knowledge? How many years did you train before you mentioned earlier about, getting in large amounts of sleep, and we've talked a little bit about nutrition, and you mentioned how you were coached by Mark Sisson and stuff. But how many years were you just slamming your head against the wall? Was it a long time, or did you learn quickly?
Oh, yeah, I would say I learned through that the devastating experience that was my college running career. And so I put the gas pedal on starting in high school. I got serious about running. I got in with some really great, my lifelong friends, Steve Diet, Steve Cobrain. They're just hammered. They were just, always running, and we'd run as far as we could and work as hard as we could. And we did pretty well, but of course, way below theoretical potential, because we were just indiscriminate dispensation of energy every day with trying to run as many miles as we could in a week. And then when I crashed and burned in college, that's when I had my first reckoning to go, wait a second, I have more competitive intensity than anybody. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to win. I'm focused, disciplined, motivated, all those great things. I'll get up at 4:30, maybe 5:30. But all that, ability to push your foot on the gas pedal, big deal. So does the next 2,000 people in the rankings, right? It means it's insignificant. If you're a lazy ass, then if you're listening to the show and you're a lazy ass, get your ass in the gym, put some plates on, and move some weight around. Congratulations. Thank you for listening. Now, when we're up at the next level, that's when we got to start thinking, how can I get smarter up at this? How will sleeping more improve my workouts? And then you start putting these pieces together with diet, and even technique, I guess, could go in that category. And so I realized early on, like I wasn't as strong as many of my peers on the pro circuit, where these guys were just superhuman specimens that never got tired. They were like robots. They'd get up every day and just go all day. And I was more whiny and wimpy, and I'd have, my back would hurt, or I'd feel tired, and I'd have to figure out, like, this doesn't seem to be working for me in the same manner as my peer. So I'm no longer going to compare myself to them except on race day. And if I can race, and this was Sisson inspiring me tremendously here, where he says, look, man, just match those guys on their best day. And don't worry about the other days. Take more time off, because you're a different human organism than your peers. Some guys are just genetically adapted, just like I'm sure in your strength community, some guys can slam it every single day, and some guys need a more nuanced approach. And I was the very fragile athlete, but I could really put it out there when the time came, but I had those crash and burn patterns. And so you just have to go with your strengths and not try to, fall in line with whoever the guy that's a little stronger than you or a little faster than you.
Did you realize that, like, because you stopped when you were around 30, right? Like, that's when you said you retired. Did you retire because of, like, the beat down of your body? Because you mentioned you were
beat
modulating.
Down of my psyche and my body. Is that what you're saying?
Well,
yes, the answer is yes, Nsima. Thank you for asking.
But like, do you think you could have gone longer by doing something different? Because, like, you mentioned that you were one of those individuals that backed off when you needed to back off and push the intensity when you needed to. So you were already doing that. Is there anything that would have allowed you to continue longer, or you think you would have still stopped at that age?
Yeah, I was forced out with poor performance, and I realized that I had hit my peak already. You never want to think you hit your peak. Like when you hit your peak and someone says, "Hey, Mark, at your peak, is that your best?" You're like, "No, man, I'm gonna go get it next time." There's no sense of that, because when you're at your peak, everything's going great, so you have optimism and think you're going to break your record again. But then when you have a chance to look back, and it's such an honest and dramatic way to learn the lessons of success and failure in life in the athletic arena, where I just I do my workout. I know from the bottom of the canyon in Auburn up to the Green Gate is, I knocked that thing out in 15 minutes one time. You all go out there and try to run from the river to the Green Gate at Stagecoach in 15 minutes. It's legit. That represents national champion, third ranked in the world, was my best on the triathlon circuit. Then there I am 2 years later, dropping a 16:12 or a 16:38, looking at that watch going, dude, this is your retirement watch that I bought myself. It wasn't a gift. It's like you're on your way out. It's so graphic that you can't lie or figure out your way around it. So would I have got more years out of my body if I'd done things differently and were smarter? I would say certainly I could have, but at the time, the trade-off that I was going for was, let's say that what we did Olympic distance racing, which was a mile swim, 25-mile bike, 6-mile run approximately, and the winner would come in there in around 1 hour and 46 minutes. So for those of you unfamiliar with triathlon, that's pretty damn fast swimming a mile. That's pretty darn fast getting on the bike and pedaling for 25 miles in less than an hour. And then you're running a 10K at just over 5 minute per mile pace after being tired from the other two sports. So some guy putting up 146 somewhere on the globe, and that's on a sticky note on my mirror every day, that is an ambitious goal. And getting to 150 or 149 or 148 is maybe, let's say, a piece of cake, right? If someone was paying me $20 million to do an hour 50, don't worry about 146. I would have lasted 5 more years, right? Because I wouldn't have, pushed the boundary in the envelope. But when I came home from these races and called up Mark Sisson in tears going, Pig's still ahead of me by 2 minutes on the bike. This guy last name was Mike Pig. He was one of the greatest athletes, but he would get a gap on the bike and then he'd pretty much jog the run and no one could catch him. So my goal was like, how do I catch that mofo or get closer to his ass on the bike so that he can start turning around and watching the Kearns train coming to get him, right? So I had to push myself way beyond what was normal and sensible. Just like you want to get 30 more pounds on your squat when it's already up at 800 or something, that ain't effing around. That's not sensible. It's not promoting longevity. But that was the sacrifice that I made. Was like a win on a professional racing circuit was way better than 6 fifth place finishes. in many ways. And then I could move on with my life, when I was 30, rather than hanging on till 35, a little bit below. Now, if I'm in the NBA, yeah, I'm going to get that final contract, or it might not be the max contract. I'm just going to be a contributor off the bench like Robert Horry and get a couple more rings, or whoever these guys are now that are still sitting on the bench. Like, oh, Mark Sisson still playing? Oh, Powell's still playing too? I didn't know that. Yeah, good for those guys, man. Just stay healthy, stay in shape. When they call my number, take off the sweats and go contribute. Yeah, hang in there. But my case was a lot different. Like once you fall off a little bit in a small sport like that, we'll make sound effects. You're gone. Yeah.
Did you notice results right away when you backed off? Like you mentioned earlier about sleeping like 10 plus hours a day and stuff like that. Did you notice a huge impact from that right away, or did you maybe feel like lazy, or did you feel like even almost tired from like extra sleep? Sometimes sleeping more sometimes make you feel worse.
Never. I think in real life, sometimes you get in those bad patterns, and there's research supporting that you're sleeping too long, you're
Right.
dragging ass. You need to get your butt up and get some sun exposure first thing in the morning and get your hormones reset and all that. But we were, so tired from the training regimen that the sleep was precious, and it was one of my, my secret attributes that I got as much sleep as I could. And I'm also thinking there's some genetics here too, where some people can sleep less than others. And
did someone like share that with you at some point? Was someone like, dude, like you just need to sleep more, you'll feel better?
No, I figured that one on my own, man. Props right here. Figured that one out. Yeah. Yeah. So there was always that opportunity to rest and sleep, and you have to take it if you're a professional. And the guys that were trying to juggle, let's say, young families, or they had a side job or something, those were strikes against them. And it was, it was pretty much, again, trying to go for that time at the top of the heap. There was no margin of error where you're skimping on sleep or doing things that were, not contributing to recovery.
There's more people talking about it now. Guys like Matthew Walker and stuff have written books about sleep, and there's more people talking about it. And I think it's great because I think we're in such a world where things are so damn distracting. I think that people are sleeping a lot less, especially a lot of, well, not even just the younger kids, but I think a lot of younger people are on their phones a lot. They're distracted by Instagram and things like that. So, getting that sleep in is crucial for all of us. And, what are some things that you learned? Like, what are some things that changed when you started, to sleep more with your running and your triathlons?
Well, I'll also add to this this discussion downtime. So there's sleep. Good night. I'm going to sleep. I'm turning the light off. That's great. Get your butt to sleep at a proper time and get enough sleep. But now we have this. We're compelled to take downtime too. Which in the old days, downtime was like you got home from work and I guess you watched TV, or maybe you sat on the porch and talked to your neighbors, or you were taking the dog for a walk around the block, and things that were part of, the fabric of society for decades. And now they're getting trashed because your Netflix queue is waiting for you there, and you can fritter away time with digital stimulation day and night. And so your entire day, you have a mobile device and you're connected all day long, so your brain doesn't have any downtime. And we were talking in the other room about the writing process and the influences, and I was complaining about how this hyperconnectivity is, I'm strongly sensitive to the negative effects of it. I hate it. So I want to take downtime from digital stimulation and putting that in the same mix as, yes, getting enough hours of sleep, obviously. And we've paid lip service to that for years. Everybody knows it's important to get enough hours of sleep. But that other element, and I feel like exercise and time in the gym can count toward that downtime where you're away from the office, away from your mobile device, and don't be sending text messages in between sets, because you're polluting the experience of the physical workout. Now, when I'm running, it would be nice if I just listened to the birds and, meditated or whatever, working on my breathing. But a lot of times I'm listening to podcasts, and I enjoy that precious time to do it. But I do make sure, for example, when I'm out on the golf course playing my favorite sport of speed golf, it's just me and the golf course, or, experiencing nature, or having time with my dogs where I'm out running with them and just talking in my silly voice to my dogs, rather than, carrying on a phone conversation or trying to multitask and hyperstimulate myself. So we have to have a great awareness of that. And as the athlete, it's pretty easy because, I'm taking a nap every single day. I'm getting in that habit. And then if I don't have it, I'm like, wow, I missed my nap. Something was wrong with my training day today. So it's really easy to get locked in. But when we have busy, hectic life and kids are waking us up at night and all those kind of things, then we can have that ideal and then do the best thing we can, subject to all the influences. That said, man, put your freaking phone away and leave it. Kelly Starrett said, you guys know who Kelly Starrett is, one of the
Absolutely.
leading strength instructors. You know what stuff we got into on my podcast with him? It wasn't flexibility, mobility, optimization.
Kept talking about sleep.
He kept talking about plug your phone in the hall. He was hitting these hot talking points like walk your kid to school. He walks his kid to school a mile every day, he and Juliet. And like, this is what's on his mind more so than the incredible wealth of knowledge and deep research he's done into physical performance. That
Drink
kind of
clean
thing.
water. Yeah.
Yeah, but just like plugging your phone in the hallway, that's pure genius, man. Because then you're setting yourself up in an environment to succeed, like he described it. And we need to do that now. It's not enough to just have all this knowledge. Like, yeah, sleep's important. I heard about the decline in hormone levels if you don't sleep enough. Let me go look on another article here at 10 o'clock at night on my phone. No. Get rid of that thing. Turn that crap off.
Might be a good idea just to not have. Might be a good rule for people just don't allow your phone to be in your room.
Unless you're my sister, if she's listening, I'll make her listen now. She's on call. She's a family doctor in the Central Valley down the road here.
You can keep it out.
And so
you can still keep it outside the room. Just have the volume cranked up.
But if you're on call to deliver a baby, you have an excuse.
Right.
The rest of you fools, let me see if you can get an excuse as good as that. My sister needs her phone. She can't miss that phone call. Everyone else, come on.
When did you start realizing that it was such an issue for you? Because like we've been like using smartphones for 8-9 years now, and I think people are really getting on this resurgence of, okay, I gotta get it away from me. When did you realize it was an issue?
Oh man, I think just the escalation of it is the thing that's really disturbing to me. And I think, as one of my main contributions to the planet is I write books, right? So I've written around 20 books in my life, dating back 25 years, and so each successive book, I get better at writing the book because I'm more skilled and I'm better at the first draft. It's not as bad as the old times, but I'm more and more distracted writing these books. And so I know what it's like to sit down and write a book in the old days when if you wanted to go online, you had to go. Some listeners have no idea what I'm talking about, but that was the sound effects of dial-up internet back in the old day. So it was this like methodical process just to go on the internet. You had to push the button and tie up your phone line to go on the internet, check your email, hang up, and then carry on. And so in the old days, you're very focused on what you're doing, and now there's a constant ability to just redirect. And so I've noticed it more and more with each book project because that's the most focused thing that I do. And it's all my fault. It's all on me. It's all on all of us to optimize our use of technology. I love it. I think it's the greatest, the iPhone's the greatest invention of our lifetime probably. And, now we're superhuman robots because I have every fact known in the history of mankind at my fingertips. And that's kind of cool, but not if we use it to a disadvantage and let it compromise our health. So trying, man, we're fighting the battle, but I like talking about it. The more I talk about it, maybe I'll be better this afternoon than I would otherwise have been if I was, you got to have tremendous discipline and structure. Same with an athlete, getting your workouts done and making sure you prioritize the right things in life. It's all goes hand in hand. So hopefully like our discipline and getting into the gym and putting up the numbers can also contribute to getting off the damn phone and putting to work whatever your top goal is there.
You mentioned, Mark Sisson a few times, and I know that you've written some books with him. Did you have any knowledge of this kind of ketogenic diet when you were doing your triathlons?
Knowledge, the knowledge was at times we could go without food for a long time, and we were probably kicking into ketosis crazily. But
even regardless of how you ate,
had no idea what was going on. Like, you run out of food and you still got 48 miles to go to get home, and you're starting to feel goofy and dizzy and all that, but you got to fight through it. So that was like, the accelerated crash course to ketosis. But we had no idea what was going on, and we had no idea that there was a different paradigm than the carbohydrate paradigm where, carbs were the fuel for working muscles. That was our programming, and you had to stuff your face before and after all workouts for 10 years. That's all our programming was where can I get enough food? And we purposely eat more food at night because we knew the next day was coming up and it was going to be big training, and you didn't want to bonk out there. Bonk is running out of blood sugar and feeling tired and goofy. So, boy, that's pretty exciting to see now, this evolution in thinking and knowing from the science things like the FASTER study, FASTER study, where athletes have an alternative mode of burning energy for hours and hours, and also replenishing that energy after a long depleting training run. That's the insight they did at this they did a 3-hour treadmill run, the FASTER study. And these are these high fat adapted athletes. They came back the next day and their glycogen was restocked. They did without eating carbohydrate or eating, minimal carbohydrate. So this fat burning machine that we can now create through devoted dietary practice, fat and ketone burning machine, will have tremendous application to athletic performance.
Some of the idea behind it too is that, I guess theoretically, you wouldn't even bonk if you were fat adapted, correct? Because you would have enough. I guess if you do anything too hard, you can run into issues, right? But if you're fat adapted, the idea is that you can have enough in storage to be able to put out whatever is necessary for extended periods of time, because fat just carries more calories than per gram than carbohydrates, right?
Well, extended periods of time. How about 2.5 million years of evolution? I mean, our ancestors did not have 3 meals a day.
Right.
They didn't have power bars in their pack.
What?
And when times
No
were
Cliff
tough,
Bars? The
Yeah, that's
chocolate
right.
chip peanut butter ones?
it was predated the Cliff Bar. But when times were tough and it was life or death survival, they probably had to output more energy to get the food. And so what were they doing? They were burning fat and they were making ketones to fuel the brain. The brain can't burn fat, but it still needs to function. And it's a highly glucose dependent organism. It's like 20 to 25% of all our calories are burned by the brain, and it can burn only glucose or ketones, a little bit of lactate they're now finding out. But like our human organism can function very well without food for long, long periods of time, not to mention without carbs. So it's not so easy in daily life, and we have different circumstances. Dr. Tommy Wood, Nourish, Balance, Thrive. I don't know if you know him, but he makes some great insights. Like today, our training methods that we're doing now have nothing to do with these hunter-gatherer ancestors. And you guys have lifted more weight than most every human in the history of the human race for 2.5 million years. You perform more physical work. Same with a triathlete who trained for hours and hours a day for years and years. No human in ancient times did anywhere near that amount of work. So we might have a different free pass to consume more regular meals or more carbs or whatever. But the idea remains that it's not as a necessity as we always have thought. We have other ways of nourishing ourselves for performance.
So you started hearing about these diets after you were done training. When you were retired,
Yes,
basically.
Yes.
And how did this kind of relationship evolve between you and Mark Sisson of you getting on board with writing some of these books? And what did you think of some of his concepts and ideas, when he was pitching them to you, where you're kind of like, what do you like, dude? No, you need carbohydrates. This is dumb.
Yeah, it was funny. Mark started that Mark's Daily Apple blog in 2006. It's now the highest ranking blog in the ancestral health space for health advice. And we got together to help start this lifestyle movement, the Primal Blueprint books and series of books after that. So he presented me in June 2008 with the 10 Primal Blueprint lifestyle laws of eating the ancestral diet. And that meant no grains and sugars. And so I pretty much cold turkey immersed into this project to learn about it and write about these concepts. And I'd had a grain-based diet my entire life. So it was just, June 10th, 2008. I'm like, no grains? He's like, no grains. I'm like, well, why not? Those are healthy. He's like, no, these are civilization foods that only started when the dawn of civilization occurred in Egypt and in the Americas and in Asia, where they're eating corn and rice and grains and harvesting the grains. And so we left hunter-gatherer past and became civilized humans. And that destroyed our health as a consequence in many ways, because we started eating nutritionally inferior food to the optimal hunter-gatherer diet. So it was a big awakening. I was like, so what about oatmeal? Is that a grain? Yeah, man, that's a grain. What about this? What about that? And so, moving over from, I'm sure the bodybuilders can reference this, like every morning was this massive bowl of cereal. That was my morning trough. People would tease me because it'd be 4 different kinds of cereal, fruit, yogurt, bananas, berries, and I would just chow this thing and then go about my day of, endurance training. So I had to switch from that to a giant omelet with 6 eggs and vegetables and avocado slices. And so it was a graceful transition just with a new concept saying, this is going to be better for my health. It's not going to stimulate insulin. It's going to allow me to, kind of leverage the nutritious meal and get better at burning body fat in between meals, so I'm not so reliant upon these energy bars that I'm selling on my website and pushing sugar out to the athletes like I did for many years in my career. I used to work for Cytosport, the makers of Muscle Milk and Cytomax, and everybody thought you absolutely need this stuff. You better have muscle milk. You're not going to recover from your workout.
That Muscle Milk, when it first came out, oh my God, it was so good.
Yeah,
that original formula was unreal.
And so, now to sit back and go, wow, so there's
how
possibly
are you
a better
still
way.
alive after eating that much cereal?
Yeah, really. Yeah, I'm just trying to undo all that damage, just like getting out of those years of making bad lifestyle decisions. You're just working back to, get more nutritious foods and cut out all those sugars and grains.
You still eat keto-ish nowadays?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm experimenting with the carnivore scene lately, thanks to Dr. Paul Saladino, your guest here last week.
What a lunatic!
Yeah, no, the guy's in my head nonstop. He's freaking me out.
So you're avoiding vegetables too.
I'm not an aggressive experimental phase here because I don't have those inflammatory or autoimmune conditions that I'm desperate to heal. I feel like I'm a healthy person, but I have in the last 3 months now, just as sort of an experiment and processing this new information, which is extremely compelling and makes a lot of sense, that you don't really need this stuff and it might in some ways be bad for you. It's mind-blowing to think my salad and all the things I'm putting on it
Come on, man.
don't really need it. And to favor those, the most nutrient-dense foods we know are things from animals, liver, eggs, salmon eggs, the sushi platter of sashimi. All these things have tremendous nutritional value, even in comparison to kale and broccoli and things like that. So it's pretty wild, and I'm one for being open-minded and thinking critically, and I think this is an exercise in thinking critically to say, I've formed fixed and rigid beliefs around my dietary and lifestyle patterns. And I feel like I'm right and the vegan freaks are wrong. But who am I to say until you continue to, load in more life experience and understand the science and get deep into it?
I've never tried a vegan diet, so I don't know.
Neither is any human in the history of humanity for a sustained period, except for today's modern vegan. No population has ever existed on a vegan diet since the dawn of our ancestors.
People are trying.
Besides that, it sounds like a great idea.
Do you think that maybe like in both cases, whether it's a carnivore, keto, even just like a standard bodybuilding diet, do you think that some of it is just some of the results are just what we're avoiding? So maybe in the case of a carnivore diet versus a vegan diet, maybe it's just the stuff that we're avoiding. Maybe because you've said that you're on a diet,
right?
And you're like more nutritionally conscious. Like, there's a lot of research that says, you take any type of being on the earth, and as long as it's a little calorie deprived, it like lives longer. Has a longer lifespan. So maybe just by eating vegetables, maybe that keeps you from eating too many calories, and therefore maybe it does line you up with having a longer life. I don't know.
Oh my gosh, you nailed it. I mean, this is the big thing that, speaking of thinking
just like
critically,
not eating shit, right?
Right. It's the not eating shit diet. A new book by Mark Bell coming soon. But when we depart from that starting point of nasty ass standard American diet, 7-Eleven fueled, fast food, junk food thing, and we go vegan and we start eating cleanly and we get lentil soup and chew on a piece of lettuce and have carrots for snack, you're going to have a massive improvement in your health. And this is the foundational premise of some great work that's been done by respected leaders. Dean Ornish, leading author, Codwell and Rip Esselstyn. I'm very old friends with Rip Esselstyn. I respect him a lot. He's done great for humanity with this plant-based diet, but we have to remember that that's a departure from something. And so it could be more about what you're not eating than the actual vegan food lineup having these wonderful health benefits. Possibly carnivore could fall in there too, although we're going to argue that, you know, those foods that you're emphasizing, that gives you a better chance to have a more nutrient-dense diet because you're clearing space away than where you might otherwise get filled up on white rice below your piece of sushi. Simple example. I like that one. I'm going to use that, right? So keep that in mind and try not to make those intuitive leaps that don't make sense. Yeah. Same with training. Like where you do something that works for a week 3 years ago, and then you kind of keep repeating that because it worked 3 years ago. It doesn't make sense, and you got to continually refine and update, and especially with diet.
Have you been noticing big benefits as you switched from carnivore? Because carnivore doesn't seem like a massive departure from what you've already been doing. Like you've been doing high fat, very minimal carb, whole foods, and carnivore is just pretty much taking out carbs, right? So have you been feeling better with it? Have you noticed a big difference?
I like your question because it opens up to the idea that, like, it's very possible that we're overemphasizing the importance of this stuff. And my good friend, Dr. Kate Shanahan, author of Deep Nutrition, one of the leading authors and experts in ancestral health field, you know, I'll get into it with her about my particulars and my blood work and all that. And she's like, you know, it's just your diet. It's probably, there's so many other factors, including your personal disposition and your level of happiness and functionality in your relationships and all those things that are going to affect your energy levels and your performance. So I think Dr. Peter Attia said this too. Once we kind of grab the low-hanging fruit, we're 80% of the way there to our longevity potential. And in the case of diet, the low-hanging fruit would be low-hanging fruit, among other things, including getting rid of all the crap and having strict rules and guidelines to say, I am not putting that shit in my body. And I think that's where I like to come on strong here on this topic, because we hear a lot of people saying, hey, everything in moderation, and weekends I have my cheat days, and so I go have pizza and ice cream, and then I get back on. It's like, no. Look, this is the most precious asset we have to take our way through life. So put some rules in place and say, I don't eat industrial seed oils. I will never consume one the rest of my life, I hope. The sugar's not so good for me either, and the payoff of having a few bites of something good does not stack up with the health consequences of eating sugar. Same with refined grains. So, I live by these strict rules and guidelines that are very, very important to me, and I think benefit me greatly. And now you can ask me, do I feel better on carnivore? Yeah, maybe so, but I was so far ahead of the game and so far past that 80%. Now I'm playing around in the 20% optimization world. And that's probably how a lot of your listeners, viewers are already at and thinking about these things with, great precision. And that's fun. But I want to set that big picture view of like, I don't eat shit food, so I'm doing really, really well. And, from there, yeah, thumbs up. And fasting more. Mm-hmm. We're now seeing this rise to the forefront. I didn't want to offend any vegans if they're still tuning in, but you can get to this point of metabolic flexibility. That's Mark's favorite term. Any way you want, even a vegan, vegetarian type diet, where you're spending long periods of time in a fasted state, where we know this is the body functions at its most optimal when we're in a fasted state. We have optimal cell repair. It's called autophagy. We have optimal immune function. We have optimal anti-inflammatory effects. So fasting is better than going to Jamba Juice and getting their fresh squeezed super antioxidant bomb. You're making more antioxidants internally when you're fasting. So as that emphasis increases, where we're not reliant upon food as our main source of energy, but we're really good at burning body fat, making ketones. And then finally, I'll throw this in from Dr. Tommy Wood. If you're a metabolically healthy person, and you do want to go get some gourmet, handmade vegan ice cream from the place in Seattle, they have these gourmet ice cream shops. It's a big scene there. I'm going there tonight. We're going to have some ice cream this weekend. Your body should be able to handle an assault of maybe not the perfect food. So if you do want to have a celebration and cut into some wedding cake, enjoy the heck out of it. Get back on the horse the next day, pump some iron, and your body's going to be fine. But don't I'm not giving you an inch so you can take a mile. Okay.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, I just saw today, it kind of dropped a bomb on the internet with him and think it's James Cameron. They teamed up to do a vegan movie, so we have to all get put through that.
Yeah, it's called The Game Changers.
Oh my god!
That's why I'm going to get a hidden camera and film Arnold chowing down those
Yeah.
eggs and meat and the things that he
So in
fuels
the,
his
in the,
life with.
Yeah, I'm interested to kind of see the direction that the movie goes. You know, it appears that it's very pro vegan. Again, I've never tried the diet, so I don't really have an idea what it would feel like to only eat vegetables. But yeah, I did find it weird. Yeah, that he built his body, you know, through. But they do show him in this, you know,
And Jackie
this video.
Chan too.
Yeah.
Oh, Jackie.
They show him in this video. They do show him eating like steak and eggs and stuff like that, you know. So I don't know what direction they're coming from, but
Hey,
we're
man.
in a weird world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if you're Allison Felix and you know training that hard, maybe that wasn't Allison Felix. Sorry, Allison, you probably have a better diet. But
Was that Mike Rashid, by the way?
No.
Oh, I thought it was him.
some cameos. We're watching
Yeah.
the trailer if you're listening on audio. But if you're working that hard in the gym, you are building metabolic flexibility in a different way than, let's say, dietary restriction. So you're starving your cells of energy and you're prompting mitochondrial biogenesis through your ambitious training program. So that means you can get away with consuming more calories. You can probably sustain good health as a vegan because you're doing all these other good things for your health and fitness. So it's
That guy doesn't look anything like Mike Rashid. I didn't realize.
there's
that till I
Ripper,
saw
my
that
friend I
show.
just mentioned. That was his cameo. Yeah. So these plant-based athletes, congratulations to them. I will say, let's check on them in 5 years' time to make sure they don't have some extreme nutrient deficiencies going on, which is a possible risk when you have that exclusive of a diet. And I don't think anyone is going to dispute that strongly. But we'll check in again. And then again, the genetic factor might come in where 23% of the population might really thrive on a vegan diet. And those 23% might be all the people listed in the credits there because they've come into this world. You know, Rich Roll podcast, popular podcast, he says, yeah, my life changed and it turned around. I did magnificent endurance feats when I went vegan, plant-based. Congratulations. One, you got your life together and quit eating shit junk food. And two, maybe this diet is optimal for your physiology. And boy, be careful, pigeonholing and sticking everybody, just like you asked me off the camera and saying, is carnivore good for me? Carnivore good for you? What about you? I don't know. And I'm not going to take huge stock in that. I'm going to try it myself kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering also because there's a clip of Arnold eating tons of meat when he was younger, and now he's an advocate for the vegan diet. But you also got to wonder with a lot of these athletes, a lot of them didn't come up eating vegan diets. A lot of them came up eating a lot of meat, probably a lot of carbs. They gained a lot of muscle, they got pretty big, and then they transferred to being vegan and taking out the shit like we were talking about. Now they feel better, but they've already built up such a high level of athletic ability prior to that. So how can you say, oh, it's because of the vegan diet that I perform this way?
Right. Oh man, that reminds me of, Bowflex, of course. I was the first sponsored athlete by Bowflex, the very first.
Wow.
They wanted an endurance athlete, and then they wanted
You're like Chuck Norris and shit.
Yeah, 1987. And so I was at the trade shows, promoting the first invented Bowflex, and there was me, the skinny endurance geek, and then there was a really well-built guy that was another spokesperson for the product. And so I was talking to him, offline, like, so man, this, you use this thing a lot. Like, what's your favorite workouts? How many rods do you use? He goes, oh man, I'm in the gym. He got his physique not on this new exciting home gym machine, but with hard work pumping real iron. Not to say you couldn't get there on the Bowflex, but it was funny because I'm like, oh, of course, you didn't just show up here because of the Bowflex, right? And yeah, it's the cause and effect, and attributing the cause to the making these flawed conclusions, and then getting too narrow in your thinking is very dangerous. Yeah.
Something that does feel very, very good, and maybe just something to be cautious of whenever you hear any of us, whether it's me or whether it's anybody else talking about feeling good, being on any diet, is just understand this, that being in control of any aspect of your life feels fucking great.
Oh, yeah.
So if you gain a little bit of control somewhere, you control some of the environment at work and clean some of that up, or you control some of the environment at home and make everything better for you and your spouse or the relationship you are. Anytime you're able to clean something up or gain a little bit of control on something, you get a little better control on your food, and like, man, I've been doing pretty good with my diet. Of course it makes you feel great. It's not even necessarily the nutrition, take it or leave it, either way, food-wise. But I think it's the fact that you, like, set out to do something and now you're doing it. Makes you feel awesome.
Wow. Yeah, that's the hidden benefit. It's fantastic. I love that. Yeah.
And as
Yeah.
you were saying, moderation, when people say moderation, I think they have this really cluttered idea of moderation. They're like, 1 minute they're on a carnivore diet, the next minute they're on a binge, they're eating pizza or something. And it's like, that's not what anyone's talking about with with moderation. Let's go back to the word control. You're going to have to figure out some way of controlling and managing your diet and getting some sort of overall management of the stuff that you consume. And once you're able to do that, then you can be flexible and you can stick and move, and you can go from keto to bringing in some carbs to trying the keto reset. There's a lot of different options that become available once you can kind of learn, how do I get control? Like if it fits your macros or those kinds of diets, if it helps someone gain control because they're weighing their food and they're getting better understanding of the calories, then that's probably a great place to start.
Great place to start. Don't get carried away. We have this condition of orthorexia now that's pervading the
Walking around
keto
your scale
scene,
all the time.
especially.
Yeah.
Right. Orthorexia is an unnatural fixation on overly correct, and so you increase your stress level in your life due to your high food standards, and you can't go with the flow. And so that's not what we're talking about here. But the same token, like if I can't find nutritious food around, that's a great opportunity to fast. So that I'm not like giving these back doors everywhere I go to depart from my high dietary standards. Mark Twain said, everything in moderation, including moderation.
I'm really curious before we move off of this topic, because you were talking about how you use fat as your main energy source at this point. For a lot of power athletes that are carbohydrate dependent, maybe athletes like sprinters, people that lift, bodybuilders, would you see an advantage of utilizing carbohydrates, or would you see that it would still be advantageous to become fat adapted and use fat as your main energy source for those types of exercises?
Yeah, there's some people doing great work in this area. Luis Villaseñor comes to mind with KetoGains.com, and he's been in strict nutritional ketosis for 18 years straight. And you can look him up.
He's in good shape.
He is jacked, man.
Yeah.
He's jacked and tan.
That's right.
Oh, like Mark. And so he's kind of hacked this process where he doesn't need to consume carbs. He has an extremely ambitious strength training, bodybuilding, powerlifting program. And it's a long way to get there. It takes a lot of work, and it's pretty tough when you're doing glycolytic workouts. And I can still reference times where I do my high-intensity sprint workouts. I'm an old guy, 54 years old, trying to do these crazy sprint workouts and break 60 in the quarter on the high school track and break the Speedgolf World Record for, running really fast and doing things that are pretty taxing to my body. And then kicking back into a lot of fasting, a lot of ketogenic meals, and sometimes those stress factors, because fasting is a stressor, right? Just like a workout is. When you put those two together, and you also throw my age into the recipe pot, it could be suboptimal. And I notice occasions where my recovery was challenged because I'm going to blame it on doing the kick-ass workout, not stuffing my face after, having the fasting period go on, having the ketogenic meals come on, and then I'm testing my blood glucose and it's 120, pre-diabetic, right? And I look at my chart and I'm like, well, let's see, I haven't eaten anything in 18 hours, and the previous meal was a steak and vegetables, and before that I had some dark chocolate and a salad, right? So why is my glucose through the roof? Because I'm making it to sustain my energy while I'm writing a book or whatever, but that implies that I'm in the fight or flight mode if I'm making that much glucose. So there's some nuances here where I'm trying to answer the question eventually, but the targeted use of carbohydrates in a foundation of fat adapted could be the way to go, especially for high-performing athletes. And of course, so much more leeway and flexibility, especially if I'm talking to a large group of people. I'm like, look, do you have excess body fat you want to get rid of or not? Yes or no? Straight up, yes or no? If you say, no, I am good, I'm at my competitive weight, then you have a whole different set of decision-making parameters than someone who's struggling and frustrated trying to drop excess body fat. If you're trying to drop excess body fat, quit eating those nasty processed carbs and kick on the fat-burning genes, work out hard, get the job done. Let's get this matter handled, and then we can start talking about performance optimization. But I mean, the room full of triathletes, the starting line of triathletes, even in the highest level races like the Ironman, a third of the field has 5, 10, or 20 pounds of excess body fat because of adverse dietary practices. So we don't even go past we don't even go into the entry gate to talk about this or that until you get the fat off your body. So I like to start there with everyone reasoning and thinking about how am I going to deal with these different influences.
That's a great point. And as you're saying that, it just occurred to me, like, I see cyclists all over the place, and a lot of times they're not in very good shape. And you're like, what the hell, man? This guy's on their, this guy or girl's on their bike a lot, but they don't have a physique that I would ever want to, desire. What is, what are some of the, obviously, like, your nutrition is a huge part of it, but is it because they're just like probably overdoing it so much? Like, not even just a recreational person on the street, because they probably have a shit diet, but even some of the competitors that you would face probably are like that as well, right?
Well, I mean, when you're getting to elite level, you're talking about no one's got a drop of excess body fat, otherwise they're not going fast. But in the endurance community, the recreational athletes, the amateur athletes, it's a big problem. And it doesn't make any sense that you're training 10, 15, 17 hours a week, working hard, pumping that heart out, burning calories, and carrying excess body fat. So there's a problem with the picture here, and we don't see that problem in powerlifting, sprinting. Have you ever seen a fat sprinter? Quick, anybody? From
Nope.
High school, NCAA, Olympics, there's no one in the 100 meters or 200 meters or 400 meters that has extra body fat, because the penalty is so severe to be carrying around fat when you're trying to do an explosive performance. But when you're sitting on a bike seat, you can pedal out to the pie shop and sit down and have a cherry pie and pedal home, and you're going to have like a net a net zero or you're going to have a net calorie increase to what you burn that day, because your appetite is stimulated when you're out there burning calories for so long, and you're burning calories at a higher heart rate than you should. So you're into the glucose burning zone. You're going to get depleted. You're going to finish the ride, and you're going to want Ben & Jerry's, one of the people we just lost sponsorship from. So that's the problem, is there sugar burning machines in the workout and sugar burning in their dietary patterns. And yes, they go hand in hand. You train at too high of a heart rate, you're gonna, that feeling of feeling depleted when you came home from, even if it's a hike or something, you just need that sugar, and your brain is going to go straight for it. No matter how disciplined you are, it's going to happen that way. So to get out of that spiral is slow down your pace of your exercise so you can be good at fat burning. And I would say in the case of a strength athlete or a person in the gym working with their personal trainer, take those things down a little bit, man. I mean, I love CrossFit, but I love the first 2/3 of the workout, and then I find a side door and say, hey, I got to bounce. I'm getting a text. I'm not supposed to use my text during CrossFit if you've been listening, but I think there's a point of diminishing returns where you can output a lot of peak performance, high intensity, and then if that workout lingers on for too long, you start to get cumulative fatigue during the workout. There's a guy named Dr. Craig Marker. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's worked with Pavel in the past at Strong First, and he has this article that was life-changing for me, and it was titled HIT versus HURT. So HIT, high intensity interval training, and his concept that's kind of a breakthrough is called high intensity repeat training. And this is where maybe the workout is not that long in duration, and your explosive efforts are not that long. So you're 10 to 20 seconds maximum. So you're not doing kettlebell swings for a minute on, minute off. You're going to this point, you're not doing sprints for more than 20 seconds or bicycle sprints. And that way you protect against the cellular damage, and you protect against this accumulated fatigue during the workout that leaves you feeling exhausted and depleted at the end, because that's going to trigger you to overeating, especially over consuming carbohydrates. So it's like, get in the gym, get it done, and get out. I don't know how that lines up with a competitive power lifter or someone, but like, putting up good numbers and keeping them up there. Jacques Devore, Maximum Sustained Power, has got that concept down in LA where you keep lifting the same weight. You don't take plates off because you're getting tired as the workout goes on. It makes sense to me. I don't know what you guys think about that kind of thing.
No, it makes a lot of sense, and I think a lot of people are guilty of that. Just kind of doing all this extra stuff because you feel like you really need to. You feel like you have to, and you could certainly come back the next day and do more stuff, but it probably makes sense to have some sort of end to your workout, whether it be that you make it through 3 or 4 exercises, or whether it be that your workout only goes this duration and then you just stop. It's only gonna benefit you probably just to go home at some point.
Oh my goodness. And I've talked to a lot of CrossFit enthusiasts because they're in the paleo, the primal world a lot, and they'll come up to me and they'll say, yeah, I love it. I'm going 5 days a week and I do this and I do that. I'm like, so you're going to what's designed to be a strenuous and challenging and broad fitness competency workout 5 days a week. It's too much. So you are, by definition, even though I've never seen you work out, you're doing 5 mediocre workouts, because there's no such thing as a kick-ass peak performance session when you're in this pattern of going back the next day and the next day. All of them are going to kind of regress down to average because you're never fully rested and recovered. So like, you want to go get the social experience, take 2 of those and go in the WIMP group and do half of what you normally do and bail, and then have one that's better than any of the other ones once a week, let's say, for argument's sake, where you're really pushing it and you're really going for it and you're setting new records on the timed measured workouts, and then the other one's medium. So instead of 5 mediums, you have 2 super easy. Maybe you drop one of those days and you have 1 kick-ass one. And your performance, your body composition, all these things that people are stuck at. I mean, we hear over and over, people, they're looking good, man. They're 12%. You shouldn't be complaining. Or the woman's, her figure would turn heads in normal everyday life, but she wants more and she can't get there and she's so frustrated. Or the guy that wants to bring the 6-pack out instead of the almost 6-pack kind of thing, or 6-pack with jacuzzi only, that kind of thing, right? You got to do something to shock the body, and that is, perform more extremely at those times when you're really going for it.
With what you were mentioning, when you mentioned HIIT, like doing 10 seconds, and then I don't think you mentioned a rest period, but in those 10 seconds, wouldn't that get anaerobic after, or is it not long enough?
Oh, sure. This is a totally different discussion than the aerobic foundation, where we want an aerobic workout to be aerobic. So that's jogging, pedaling your bike over to the farmer's market, pedaling home, that kind of thing. But when you're doing a hard workout, and we're so accustomed to doing interval workouts, high-intensity interval training is the fitness thing, and the articles all over the internet saying it's the most efficient way to train. It's better than jogging, which what they mean is you get a better fitness response, and that's all fine and well. But any workout that has this element of cumulative fatigue during the workout, where you're more sorry ass at the end than when you were at the start, that is a potential flaw and a potential compromising recovery. Dr. Marker's article talks about the cellular destruction that occurs when you ask your body to perform maximum intensity for longer than 20 seconds. This is mainly more relevant to me in my sprints, where I'm running and I'm going full speed. Once you get to 10 seconds,
it's
you
still
start
very relevant to strength training, because you shouldn't be like, yes, you're going to be fatigued and you'll be tired from your workout, but yeah, you should be able to still have some force output at the end of a workout.
Force output, well said. I mean, for sprinting, my force output is my time across the football field, let's say. So let's say I bust one out at first. I used to do 100 meters. Now I only do 60 after talking to Dr. Marker and saying, okay, there's diminishing returns. Once you get up into the 10, 15, 20-second mark, you have an exponential increase in cellular destruction if you keep asking your body for more and more. It's called disassembling and deamination of the cellular energy to pump out more ATP because you're going maximum.
And it doesn't matter how fit you are. You can be as fit as you want. Sprinting for 15 seconds is almost physiologically impossible. Like, your body, it's going to slow down, and that's what a lot of sprinters, even the 100-meter sprinters, even the top-level 100-meter sprinters, it's a fight for who can decelerate the least.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Usain Bolt hits maximum speed at 60 meters. He's going 28 miles an hour, and then he's just trying to hang on. Yeah. And by the way, talking about the elites, it is known in science that they have way less cellular destruction than the average Joe. So Wade van Niekerk, South Africa, you can pull that up. It's one of the greatest performances by a human in the history of our lives. He won the quarter in the Rio Olympics from the outside lane, lane 8. So he never saw another athlete because of the stagger. And he literally sprinted the entire track and destroyed the world record, one of the greatest world records from Michael Johnson. He ran a quarter mile of 400 meters in 43 seconds flat. And it was, it was amazing to see a guy sprint for that long. So his cellular destruction that took place during that 400 meters was way less than Joe Blow Brad Kearns, who's also on YouTube running a 60-second quarter with 700 views by now.
Yeah.
But I was trashed at the end, and I couldn't catch my breath to speak for a minute or two. And he's crossing the line, raising his hand, and then soon off on a victory lap. So his body can run a sprint a quarter mile with less trauma than average Joe. So we have to respect that, like, our limitations are, we got to err on the cautious side, and I'm taking my sprints down to around 10 seconds now. And so the point I was wanting to finish was, like, the first sprint is, I feel great. Let's say I did 9 seconds to get to the 40-yard line from the end zone. Oh, there it goes. We should pause for 43 seconds. This is such a beautiful. So if you're watching on YouTube, look at the guy in the outside lane, how he takes off like a freak, going way too fast. Look at his form too, the drive in his legs. He's sprinting. His split there is under 21 seconds for halfway. So that's like a great, winning the NCAA title at halfway, and then still going. And this is where everybody ties up and their form changes. You can see the stride and the tension in the neck and the shoulders. And here he goes, just unleashing complete preservation of form and explosiveness all the way down the home stretch.
Ooh.
World record's 43.1, and he's 43.0.
Wow.
Yeah, that was crazy.
I thought he'd peter out when he left. That's insane.
These guys that are catching him are like, dude, what just happened? Because they had one of the greatest races of their lives, and he destroyed them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just like Usain's done to the one of the
400 meters. That's no messing around. 400 meters. The 200 meter. I mean,
it's pain and suffering right there, man.
Oh my God.
Much respect out to.
I saw recently on TV they had 200 meters and it was just straight away. Did you ever see that?
Yeah. They like in Boston, they were doing a meet. Yeah, that's cool. They're mixing up track and making it more fun and exciting.
Yeah, it looked cool. And there's a running show coming on TV coming up with Chad Johnson, Ocho Cinco.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, it looks
that's
cool.
That's great. Love it. Yeah.
It's fun to watch.
Yeah. So my first sprint of the workout is a nice little 9-second. And I'm going to say on perceived exertion, I gave it a 90 out of 100, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want that 8th one to be 9 seconds at a 90 out of 100 perceived exertion.
Oh.
And so I'm not going to do the 9th one because I might notice, sometimes I'll notice a tiny, tiny lower back or hamstring grabbing on my 7th or 8th sprint. That is the designated end of the workout. Just like that last set where your form breaks a little bit. See you guys, I'm out of here. Because if you continue on with, passing by those messages of breakdown, then you're going to ask for longer recovery time, potential for injury damage, cravings, and sleeping the afternoon away rather than keeping it real and keeping it explosive at all times.
This is all stuff I've been talking about for like the last 10 years. When it comes to strength training, your last rep of your last set should look like your first rep of your first set.
Oh, that's pure. Is that in your book? I mean,
yeah,
that's pure
it's everywhere. I
genius.
say it all the time. No one ever listens.
Been saying it for years.
If you, if you did a 5 sets of 5, which is a very standard, powerlifting protocol, 5 sets of 5 reps, or if you were to do 8 sets of 3 reps, or however you break it down, normally people are in this 24, 25, maybe 30 rep range, 10 sets of 3, all these different protocols. Whatever the case is, the form should look similar on all the reps and all the sets, and it's hard to like stay in your lane with it because you just don't want to. You want to go heavier. Again, you're excited because you're in a group and somebody has that extra weight on there, and you're like, screw it, I'll just do that, and you just kind of but it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. I mean, for fun it does. Yeah, you could have fun that way, but you're not going to really make the progress that you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, just like we were talking about earlier, you can make progress getting off the couch, doing anything. Just show up and get your keypad punched at. Well, yours is free, so you don't have to do that here.
That's
And
right.
They don't like turn you away, like when my thing expired and I couldn't get in. No, you're just good. You just show up, lift some weight. But then
right.
when we want to improve and especially avoid the injuries and the breakdown, that's when we start listening, people. That's why he's doing a podcast in the first place.
That's
Come
right.
on.
You know, real quick.
Oh,
'cause-
there's another viral video teed up.
yeah.
If you're not watching on video, you're missing a little bit, but you know we'll try to keep you. Well, I did the color commentary on the 400 pretty well. Okay,
That was good.
all right.
Okay, so before this video plays, I have two questions to ask you about what you were talking about. Now, you were mentioning that you want to have every single set of that HIIT workout be the same.
We'll call it HURT workout.
HURT
So the
workout.
distinction, it would be high intensity repeat training, just like
okay.
Mark's been talking about 10 years, is you want to repeat that explosive effort rather than seeing it decline.
Perfect.
And like the spin class at the gym, okay, we're going to sprint 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off for 10 minutes. And then at the end, the teacher's going, keep going, you can do it one more. And the people are just
Sprints like a
trashed,
walk.
but they're going to put out another 30-second sprint and disassemble and deaminate their cellular structure accordingly and get ammonia toxicity, because that's what happens in the bloodstream when this is going on. And what's going to happen after that? Compromised fat metabolism. So instead of burning fat, they're going to burn lean muscle tissue, and their whole game, the whole reason they're going to the gym is screwed up because they did too many sprints. If you're an instructor, I'm sorry. I know you're doing a good job trying, but don't push people too hard or they won't burn fat. They'll burn skeletal muscle. Other than that, great class. Thanks, teacher.
It might be as bad or worse as not getting enough sleep.
Right, you
Sounds
throw
like
that on there too, because
Right.
the spin class was at 6 a.m., so we didn't get enough sleep. Oh, man. Okay, sorry, Nsima.
No, it's totally okay. Now, your rest periods, I'm guessing, are just the however long you need to be able to do the next repeated bout for
Right.
that same intensity, correct? So it could be 1 minute or a minute and a half.
You know what Dr. Marker calls them?
What does he call them?
Luxurious rest intervals. And that, to me, this was life-changing for me, because I'm doing these sprints. I've been doing them for 13 years since Mark Sisson got me understanding the importance of not just being able to still jog and do bike riding, but sprint, really sprint. But I was so conditioned with my endurance mindset and my ability to suffer and be tough and also recover so quickly, because I'm not explosive, I'm mostly endurance, that I'd do my sprints and then I'd throw down another, I'd rest for 15 seconds, I'd go hit another one, rest for a very short time, go hit another one. And I could do it. I did fine. I still put up good times and everything, but the cumulative effect of that over the next 48 hours, I'd feel like crap even 24 to 36 hours later, because I didn't recover enough. So I did, what was your term for it? Like continuing that explosive output, or what was the
Being able to
force production or
have
something?
the same force production.
Yeah, same force. I had the same force production, but the 8th one was so much more challenging than the first one because of that lack of rest. So we put together, we're trying to finish this whole picture is tone those time frame down to 10 to 20 seconds is the sweet spot. Over 20 seconds is highly questionable. Luxurious rest intervals. And then a sufficient number of sprints, somewhere between 4 and 10 is plenty. You can't say you're going more than 10 and doing sprints. If so, go freaking faster. You know, what are you doing out there? You're going to do 20 sprints? You don't need to do 20 sprints.
What about someone who's not able to produce much force? Like I've trained a lot of clients over the years, and sometimes female athletes would have a harder time like being explosive with a certain weight, and I found that like neurologically they're not super efficient, you know. So what if you had somebody that maybe can't, you know, Nsima would be able to go crazy on some of the machines out there. If we were sprinting on a bike or something like that, he'd be able to blow the whole thing to pieces probably. But whereas someone who isn't as strong, you know, would the 10-second kind of thing still apply?
Yeah, that's a good question. If you're less explosive and more, let's say, endurance oriented, or just don't have the nervous system yet, you could extend that time out. Yeah, and you arguably could do more reps than a truly explosive athlete.
Right.
And the real explosive people can take it up to 7 seconds. That's all they need.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so that
makes sense.
That's really interesting. This guy, Dave Dolay in Switzerland, he's a top trainer there. We got to pull up his Dave Dolay 1 minute workout or something like that. But he was a former elite level sprinter and the Swiss national record holder in 100 meters, 10.16. So he was a top athlete, and now he's a top trainer in Switzerland. And he's done a lot of research into neurotransmitter makeup as applied to the type of training workout and training program you should organize. And there's people with different neurotransmitter dominance and deficiencies, and thereby, when you ask one person, let's say it's Nsima, to give me an all-out effort for 1 minute on the box jumps, ready, go, and you're gonna slam that assignment and collapse on the floor at the end because of your explosive nature. But there's going to be another person that comes into the gym the first day and they're getting their assessment. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to go all out over and over for 1 minute. I'm going to tell you, I want to see you give it all you got. And they go, and you say, stop. And they go, okay, what's next? They don't have the neurotransmitter profile to be explosive. And they that was all out for them. It just looks differently, and some of that's the
maybe they don't even have the same mentality either.
Well, that's what the mentality is the neurotransmitter makeup, and where it's like they weren't sandbagging you. That is all out, and they're like, "Whew, that was tough." Okay, you know what I mean? The difference between and he was describing he and his training partner in the 100 meters had a similar time. They're both world-class guys. This guy had to warm up for an hour before his 100-meter race with jogging, stretching, explosive, starts for 12 meters, 20 meters, another set of starts, more stretching. And Dave would be asleep in the stands, waiting till the 20-minute call came for his race. He'd wake up, shake off the cobwebs, get in the blocks, and blast a 10-second 100 meters. And he said that was his neurotransmitter profile was different than this guy that needed a long ramp up. I'm sure you can reference this for strength athletes too, where some guys need 4 warm-up sets before they're going to go for their PR, and the other guy needs 2 swigs of coffee. But it was cool. You can take this neurotransmitter questionnaire. I'll send you the by email, but you can go online, and it's called the Braverman Neurotransmitter Test. And you will get a spit-out reading of your neurotransmitter, dominant neurotransmitter, and deficient neurotransmitter. There's GABA, dopamine, serotonin, and acetylcholine. So those are the 4, and you're going to be dominant in one and deficient in another one, and that can help inform not only your diet according to the EDGE effect is the name of the book, but also your training patterns. But the basic insight for the show here is some people. You're crash and burn guy like me, where I can throw down for 1 day, 1 workout, and I'll hang right with you, and I'll go home in a body bag, and I'll need to rest for 3 days. Or other people are like, okay, what's next? That was fun. And it's really cool to figure that out, because your example of the female who didn't have, she may, in 3 years of hard training, she may still be that person that just can't put out that much explosiveness. Also, the genetic testing, I don't know if you guys have done that yourself, like DNAfit.com. I got my muscle fiber composition, and it was the shock of my life. It was 56% strength power and 44% endurance. My whole life, I've been an endurance athlete fighting against my genetics, which were more adapted to strength and power. And so if I'd known, this is the one thing, I wish I'd known the diet stuff 25 years ago, but if I had known this one thing from this one test, it would have just transformed my approach to athletic training, because I would have known I'm not that mule with the packs in the Grand Canyon where you load that animal up and it walks in the 100-degree heat with 80-pound pack and goes the next day and does another mule trip and another mule trip. I'm the thoroughbred racehorse that needs to be washed and scrubbed with nice soap and then given out a workout, once in a while, and then having tremendous amount of rest and lower intensity, lower stress training, because the anaerobic muscle fibers don't recover as well as the aerobic muscle fibers. So those reference I was talking about, Mike Pigg, Andrew McNaught, and these guys I train with, they could get up and go every single day for 6 to 8 hours of training. No complaints. And I just how come I'm not that good? It was because I had different genetics. So gosh, it would be a cool thing to test for if some guy comes in at 80% endurance and he's trying to set goals in strength and powerlifting sports. Geez, you're going to have some modifications to the training plan.
Do you think with the test you did, do you think that because you're training differently now than you did back then, you know how fiber types at a certain point can change for individuals, like a certain amount of them can change? Was that the case for you now, or do you think back then that was the same 56-44 you were mentioning?
Yeah, the percentage is there. And that's genetics.
That's
so
okay.
when I was
Change.
training, I was deadening my oxidative fast twitch muscle fibers. Is that type 2A or 2B? 2A. So I was deadening those with extreme endurance training and not a lot of sprinting. And it would have benefited me greatly to keep those guys sharp because I had so many of them, and I would have had more explosiveness on the hills and less, it would have been a nice package to work those genetic attributes that I had.
Gotcha.
Whereas if you don't have them in the first place, you're mostly slow twitch, you're slow twitch. You're not, there's nothing you can do about that. But those ones that transfer from oxidative to non-oxidative, that's from training. And so a lot of the people in the gym with, big numbers have trained those muscle twitch fibers to do what they're asking them to do. Yeah. And so there's certain parameters or limitations where, you're going to pick your favorite event. It doesn't mean I should have gone and done strength or power because that just wasn't my thing. Probably I probably wouldn't have been that good. I would have been better at endurance, but just work within that genetic profile.
And with the HERT training stuff, are you usually doing that on some sort of machine, or are you actually physically like going outside and sprinting?
Yeah, I'm sprinting. Yeah, I'm I love sprinting. I think it's for everybody to have that weight-bearing explosive impact and the bone density that it develops. It helps with brain function and BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and all these amazing benefits. But it's sort of like the use it or lose it principle. I'm going for longevity, so I'm going to be a sprinter the rest of my life because that explosiveness is the thing that you really lose more quickly than anything else as you age as an athlete. High jumping, I have a great passion for that. And it's like if I can get over that bar as, raising the bar in my life or having the standard to clear, it's me defying the aging process in that sense. Yeah.
Well, to have enough power to move your body that way, fast through space, and which is sprinting, or to be able to jump like that is really a great thing. I remember Paul Chek wrote an article years ago talking about, you should be able to, how he was able to sprint about the same, like maybe 40-yard dash. I can't remember if it was 100 or 40, but it was the same as like what he did in high school. And as a young guy reading it, I was probably like 25. I was like, that sounds stupid. Like he should be faster, But then now I kind of understand. Okay, he was like 50 when he wrote the article, so I get it. But I thought that was actually, as I thought about it more over the years, I think that's really cool. That's a great thing. And it's like, well, why aren't people sprinting? Well, because sprinting hurts. It's hard. It's tough. It's when you think about like, what's like the most calorically, what's something you can do to really like wipe out a lot of calories, and you could do something like a burpee. Like who the fuck wants to do a burpee unless a coach makes you do a burpee? No one's doing them, right? Yeah. People aren't really doing burpees on their own unless you're a crazy CrossFitter. But normally it's prescribed by some coach, right? And sprinting is kind of a tough thing for a lot of people. You see a lot of people running. I see a lot of people running. I see a lot of people cycling. I see a lot of people out like recreationally doing a lot of stuff. But like you said, how many fat sprinters do you see, right? It's pretty rare. So I think sprinting is great, and it's great to, as a bigger guy, you might want to, just from working with a lot of people over the years, if you go outside and sprint randomly, you're probably going to hurt something, especially if you haven't run in a long time. So that's something to think about, something to consider. Maybe start out on a bike, in the gym, like Airdyne or something like that. Start out with something that is going to be a little easier until you work your way up, to have enough fitness to be able to go outside and sprint. But the point is, you should be able to do that. You shouldn't be restricted.
What's that? There's a famous old-time author like Walt Whitman or something said, a man should be able to skin an animal, swim a mile across a lake, build a house, bake a pie. Like these male checkpoints to be the everyman. But yeah, weight-bearing activity is where you get that extra benefit, especially for dropping body fat. You need that stimulation of the weight-bearing activity. It'll have much more impact than, let's say, pedaling on the bicycle because you're sitting your butt on a bike. So something that puts your body under load, and it could be uphill sprinting if you're concerned about your weight or your joint. You do sprinting up the stadium stairs. But the key, like anything sprinting, is it can be done with it's just maximum output for a short period of time. Yeah.
And what do your rest intervals look like when you do those?
Oh, so now it's like, at least a minute. And then at a certain point, I'm okay. But I'm deliberately taking more time I know ATP regenerates in like 2 or 3 minutes, correct?
Yeah.
Bodybuilders know that.
Yeah,
'Cause
for powerlifting purposes.
powerlifting. So
Yeah, in some cases you might need the shorter the duration, the more intense something is, the longer you need.
uh-huh.
So sometimes it's a multiplier of 10, sometimes a multiplier of 20, depending on how long the thing took you to do. So if something takes you 4 seconds, it could even be multiplied even further than that, because you might need. It also depends on the fitness level of the person. But if you were to try to sprint, I mean, you think about like even the preparation or the warm up that it requires to sprint 40 yards. You're gonna need some sort of warm up. I realize some people might not need much, but you're gonna need something. The intensity of that is very high to try to sprint as fast as you possibly can. The intensity of like a walk, like what do you need?
Right.
You might need to be like halfway awake and you can go walk and you don't need any sort of warm up for it. The intensity is super low. If we're going to try like a maximum effort bench press, you're going to need some time to warm up. You're going to need some time to get your body ready, get your nervous system ready. You're kind of mentioning these like neurotransmitters. You have to have your central nervous system needs to be like awake and on board with what you're about to do. I've seen people in the gym, we'll work them up to like, let's say a 300-pound like deadlift. They'll flat out miss it. They can't even budge the damn thing off the ground, right? And I'll go over to them. I'll say, well, what was the weight that you just did before, and how did that look? Because I may have turned around and worked with somebody else on something for a second. And they'll say, well, I went right from 225 to this. And I'll go, oh, damn, okay, well, why'd you do that? They're like, I don't know, I was excited, I felt good. Like, no, we can't do that. We can't just jump from 225 to 300. It doesn't work that way. So we'll take a few in between lifts. I'll say, let's kind of start over. Let's do 225 for one. Let's do 245. Let's do 270. Let's pick out some of these middle weights. I'll see what that looks like. And then maybe we have another chance and we'll try 300 again, depending on how 285 moved or something like that. They do 285, and sure enough, they get to 300, and bam, they nail it. And it's like their central nervous system is now on board with what they're about to do. They could have warmed up. They could have simply just warmed up correctly the first time, but a lot of times they may not have the knowledge, but you have to kind of figure out a way to get yourself there. Your body needs to feel like the weight.
It's called optimally excited and uninhibited.
Right.
That's the prime central nervous system. But I'm wondering, like, how many of those do you have in you? If you're hitting 270, 275, 280.
So for training purposes, it's training, and training should be harder than the fight itself, So I always say, like, look, it's not going to kill you if we get an extra set in here, but let's keep track of this. Let's pay attention to this. Do we need to be like effing around with all the smaller weights, or is it more important for you to be messing around with all the heavier weights? Like, what works well for you? Do you need to spend a bunch of time moving the bar around because you like your body to be warm and you want to move the bar and a plate around a bunch? Each person seems to be a little bit different when it comes to some of that. Some people mentally just don't care. They're like, I'm ready now. They feel good, but we still need to figure out a way to kind of heighten that central nervous system. So normally with most people, I have them take a lot more sets, but the stronger the athlete, the less sets they usually need.
Right, or the different makeup.
Yeah.
You might need just a quick warm-up set and then go set a PR. Yeah.
I squatted, I think it was 1,030. And my warm-up for 1,030 was, I started with 500 pounds. The next lift was 700 pounds. The next lift was 900 pounds. And then I went and did my opening attempt on the platform. So I got my body warm just by like walking. I put 500 pounds in the bar, threw a belt on, smashed that for a rep, did some like Kelly Starrett stretches in between, went to 700 and went to 900 and went to my opening attempt on the platform. And it worked great. That was like one of the better meets I've ever had.
Don't try this at home, folks.
No, don't try it at home. But we also, a lot of times
try
we'll
the philosophy at home, but not the weights involved.
We also will utilize a lot of really low reps, in our warm-up. That's really important too. So if someone's trying to do 300 pounds and they do 225 for 15 reps,
that's going to tire them out.
Yeah, they might be done, and they might think in their head, like, I need all this stuff because I need to be warmed up. It's like, well, let's, we can do the lighter stuff, or you could figure out a way to get your heart rate up and to be warm, but we don't need to be doing all these reps,
Right.
I think a big thing there too is like when you were warming up, you did your 500, 700, 900, 1,030. A big thing is that you were treating that 500 like you did that 1,030 in terms of the way you went towards the movement. When you think of someone that's deadlifting 225 up to 300, they were probably deadlifting, they knew that 225 was light, so they weren't using the same type of mechanics that they did than when they touched 300 pounds. So when they touch 300, now they're a little bit out of whack and it doesn't come off the ground because they're not executing that lift the same way. So that's why, like, if you treat lighter loads like your heavier loads, you could get away with warming up less because it's the same thing. It's the same way you execute that force.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, your hamstrings were stimulated the same way. Your lower back was stimulated the same way. And in your head, you're like, that's 400 pounds. And you rip it off the ground. Maybe you even have, maybe because of how fast it moved, maybe you applied more force to it even. Who knows?
Okay, I'm going to try that, man.
We got to run some tests.
Work up my hex bar deadlift numbers.
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably a lot in the head too, because like the 295 the other day. It's like it worked, and then 300 didn't work for me for some reason. Yeah, not sure what happened.
Psyched out.
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
Yeah,
yeah. Andrew did 265 paused bench press this morning. Yeah.
No, it's
265,
255.
Oh, 255.
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
added 10.
Yeah, threw a little extra on there. 255 this morning. Paused bench, and I think 3 months ago he did 205.
Well, as far as like a pause, like I haven't attempted a pause bench since the competition in February.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, pretty much like a couple weeks ago, I wouldn't have even thought I could have touched that amount of weight. So yeah.
But a lot of it with him has just been picking the right weight. I mean, literally, it's been that's been so crucial. It's just to pick the correct weight. And we do a lot of like assistant stuff. We do a lot of other work. But when it comes to the strength movement, we're not like, we work hard. We're not killing ourselves. We work hard. We're not killing ourselves. If we're going to kill ourselves, I will admit we probably do overtrain here and there just because, like, from a mental standpoint, I love it. I'm done with my competitive years. So I'm still guilty of probably taking too long. But, training takes a long time. I have fun with it. So fuck it.
Yeah. Well, just like today, I did 250 and he's like, man, that moved fast. Do you want more? Yeah. Like, definitely. All right, fine.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a good day.
Yeah. We got to kind of judge it by, how it looks, how it feels for him and all that kind of stuff.
Cool.
So what the hell's going on with speed golf?
Speed golf.
So this incredible sport of speed golf.
Did you invent? Are you one of these guys who invented something so that you could have a world record? Is that what's going on?
No, but
here?
that's funny because there's. Well, we can watch this first, and then I can talk about speed golf. Or no, put it on pause for a sec, because I mean everyone knows what golf is, and there's this great underground sport. It's not too popular. Not a lot of people are playing it, but we're trying grassroots. But it's called speed golf, and so you actually have a golf tournament where you go and they keep your score, just like you watch on TV. So you're trying to shoot a good score, but they're also counting your time. They're timing you around the course.
Move your ass. It takes a slow sport.
So they add the strokes and the minutes together to get a speed golf score for tournament conditions. So, for example, the best tournament I ever had, I shot a 78, which is a pretty good golf score, and I ran the course in 47 minutes. So I add 78 plus 47 is 125 was my speed golf score. The winner got a 119. He shot even par on a golf course, a championship course, running around and taking, we take 5 or 6 clubs. So you can't be goofing around like Happy Gilmore and hockey pucking into the hole. You got to try to go for pars and hit straight shots so you don't waste time. But you're also moving quickly. So I'm doing kind of a tempo run through the course.
It's a hell of a metaphor for life. I mean, you're sprinting around from one thing to the next, but you have to still be accurate, right?
Calm down, hit the shot. Just like, skiing biathlon really in the Olympics.
Yeah.
Where the cross-country skiers
right.
ski. They shoot the target. They ski. Not many people know. Like, if you miss a target, you ski a 200-meter penalty lap.
Oh.
So there's no guys just rushing and shooting a gun off. They are taking their time, and they need to get those things if they want to win. So same with speed golf. If you hit some crappy shots, or even if you miss a short little putt, realized that a minute of running is a point, just like a stroke, and I can run an entire hole in a minute. So you don't want to miss anything. But I'm describing this before the video because we have the tournament competition, and you play the whole course, 18 holes like you're familiar with. And then I discovered on Guinness website, there was this offshoot world record for the fastest single hole of golf ever played. So it's totally different than our tournament experience where we're going and playing the whole course. But here's this dude, and I saw his viral YouTube video of just racing his ass down a hole and setting the fastest time for one hole. Now, the rule for Guinness is it has to be 500 yards hole. So you can't just hit a little par 3 and run and get it, or hit a hole in one, that didn't only take 3 seconds. Yeah. So it has to be this lengthy hole. If you don't play golf, a par 5 is a long way, 500 yards, more than a quarter mile. So I saw the video, and this became my obsession because I love sprinting like we talk about, and now I can put the sprint together. I only took one club, as you'll see, and I'm just going after this record. So I broke it twice, and this is a video of me down in LA, and I guess I can give color commentary if you're listening. So once the ball is struck, you see the clock starts, and because my form is perfect, you can't tell I'm sprinting so hard. It looks like I'm just cruising along, but I'm full gas all the way, just like Van Niekerk in lane 8.
Dang. This is in Los Angeles, you said?
Yeah, this is down in L.A. I broke it once at Bing Maloney here in Sacramento. So
have you ever gone to Bodega Bay with all the hills?
Nice golf out there. Yeah, we have some tournaments in speed golf that are on steep hills, and that adds a whole another element.
Yeah, Bodega Bay. I like going to Bodega a lot, and where the golf course is, there's tons of hills there.
Yeah.
That'd be brutal.
So there's my first shot. I run up. You see, I only pause for about 1 or 2 seconds. So I'm breathing, heaving. I can barely catch my breath. I can barely see the ball. The sweat's dripping. I'm just, and then whack that thing.
The first time you tried this, did you suck at it?
I sucked at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll even say.
I would imagine. I mean, like this seems.
I'll answer that when we're almost done. That's what's good about speed golf. It doesn't take forever. So if you're listening, Brad is running to his second shot now near the green. So I hit 2 pretty good shots there. And now this is the clutch part because I only have 1 club. So really I should be using a chipping club and a putter to finish this hole. But I decided to save the time and just keep my 3-wood going. So I hit 3-wood, 3-wood. Here's my third shot was a 3-wood. And that was a tricky little touch shot that I had to get up on the green. And my friends were screaming because I hit it really close. So now I have a chance to take this record down. And this is for birdie.
Nice.
So that was pretty much of a perfect setup where I hit 4 perfect shots and was running fast.
Now, if you missed it and then had to hit it again, would you still have gotten the world record because of the time or no?
Yeah, sure. That's another second, right? So It wouldn't have killed me.
Right.
But when
it's
I
nice
first
to have done it that way.
Yeah, so when I first tried it, I saw this guy, Steve Jeffs in Great Britain. He had a minute 50 for playing a par 5. I'm like, wow, that's incredible. But wait a second, I can sprint with the best of them. I'm going to go out there and just take this record down for fun tomorrow night. So I went out to the course, and I timed myself, and I ran pretty darn fast, but it wasn't sprinting. But I was moving good, and I hit some good shots, and I stopped the watch, and it was 2:12. I was 22 seconds behind the record.
Wow.
So that kicked off like this 5-month odyssey of like really focusing in and going for this and practicing those crazy in-between shots. I put my putter away, and I just putted with a 3-wood for 5 months because I wanted to just have that be my putter in my mind and not get confused. So it's fun to talk about because it was like a methodical approach to doing something that to me was of great importance and a real big challenge. I'm an old guy, and now I'm in the record book, even though I was 53 when I broke the record.
Seems like a lot of fun too.
And super fun.
I mean, I know it was competitive and it was hard, but it seemed like you're having fun with it.
It's so much fun every single day that I practice. And I realized, this is now 20-something years removed from my days on the pro circuit. Just like you referenced, you're not doing this stuff at competition level anymore, but you have to keep that charge going in some way for your entire life. Otherwise, we're just going to be fat asses watching the NFL on TV on Sunday and eating chips and beer and pizza.
What's wrong with that? It sounds great.
I mean, it's much greater if you've had a few good workouts that week, right?
That's true.
And for me, like talking about back in the day and how fast I used to race triathlons and all that stuff, you know what? We can really easily get stuck in that back in the day pattern with our stories and our reminiscing rather than going forward in today's life. So to me, like that was just a fun, silly thing. And you're commenting like, did you make up a record? It's like, sort of. I mean, some guy made it up before me.
My wife is always really brutal. She said, tell this speed golf guy that I just set a world record getting mail from my mailbox.
Exactly.
I was like, I'll let him know. I was like, be nice, play nice.
Yeah, but like the thing for me right there that you watched on video was like perfect execution, right? I got a freaking birdie. I don't get a ton of birdies when I'm playing in 4 hours with 14 clubs in my bag. A birdie's a nice score, and I did it while I was in full sprint. I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever match that again. It was like a miracle. But to me, like the sensation of hitting that putt in, it was just as strong as crossing the finish line, winning the national championships, and ESPN's there, and I'm getting interviewed, and I'm all excited. I'm a young guy, and this is my dream come true. And so now, even though that was unimportant, I got no giant prize check. You didn't see that there. I just got some back slaps from my son and my friends. But it was like...
It's probably almost better in some way.
It was really...
Because you thought those years were behind you.
That's right. Yeah, and so even if it's the goofiest thing, like running to the mailbox and setting up a new time, it's something, and it really does matter. And so we want to be in the proper mindset and not be a jerk about your athletic goals and snapping at your significant other on your way into the powerlifting meet because you're all tense. And she says, sorry, I thought you wanted to park closer. No, I didn't say, this kind of bullshit where you see these athletes that are out of the proper mindset. I used to play adult league basketball in town here, and these guys would like get in my face.
Basketball's a tough one. There's always going to be battles going on.
Oh my God. I mean, this dude, I'm 5'10", 165. This guy was 6'2", 230 probably, and he's in his 30s, a fit guy, big, and he kept hitting me with his elbow in the back. And so finally I'm like, I got to try harder on this guy. So I really tried hard to box him out, but we got our feet smashed on top of each other, and he went slap flat on his back because of my boxing out effort. And he jumps up and he gets 6 inches from my face, and he says, man, I'm going to kick your effing ass. And I go, no, you're not, because I'm 53 years old. You weigh 60 pounds more than me, and we're just trying to play basketball, and I'm not that good, as you can tell. So I'm sorry I knocked you down, but you're not going to kick my ass. Get it? He's like, all right, well, don't do it again. I'm like, I'll try not to, but I'm not that good. I'm just trying to have fun, but like I succeeded in taking him out of the intensity mindset. Right. We shook hands, and I'm like, I'm sorry, dude. I was just trying to box you out, Yeah. But once we get everything,
I think everyone just wants to score all the time and like not have people halfway play defense. When you play a pickup game,
everyone wants to just have it be an all-star game at a pickup game.
It's an all-star game. I know. Yeah. So anyway, like if we can keep it fun, like you said. But also you got to have that little charge in there. So I want to have fun, but I got to have that little charge in there. So it means something to me to show up. And like with this Guinness thing, the rules are so complex. You have to apply. It takes 12 weeks to get approved to go try for the record. And then it gets 20 weeks to get ratified after you send in all this paperwork. Wow. But I had to have 10 people there to watch. 2 timers, 2 filmmakers, a backup cameraman, 2 independent witnesses that I hadn't met before that I had to corral because they didn't have a vested interest. And so all this stuff had to happen. So for me, like I'm leaning on all these people to pull my dream team together. So I felt that pressure of like, it's not just me out there with my stopwatch. It's like, this is my one chance only to go for it. You can't waste it. Yeah. And so like being that, having that significance is fun, man.
And that was your second, because you mentioned breaking that record.
Yeah, I did it up here in Sacramento. So my fiance Elizabeth has the distinction of being my timer on both events, the only person that's witnessed 2 world records, and she's my scorekeeper in all the speed golf tournaments. So we have a great time, and it's it's something fun to do. But like I wrote a blog article about it at my website. I said, it was fun, but it was something a little bit more than fun, because fun is throwing water balloons with your kids at the family picnic, and this was like, I tried hard at this. I practiced hard. I give much respect to the guy, Steve Jeffs in England, and I sent him an email after that first attempt where I'm like, dude, are you an Olympic sprinter or something? Because I watched your video, and I don't know how you did it that fast. And he says, let me tell you something. I practiced that hole 1,000 times to try to get it right and know exactly where to hit the shot. And I said, all right, thanks, man. I'm going to go off and practice a hole 1,000 times and respect this more than if I just gone out there and said, I beat this dude's record. Look at this, So the whole process was, a lot of life experience and personal growth from it. And I'm going to go take another shot at it. And if I miss it, I don't care, man, because it's like being in the game is the big thing.
Yeah.
Are you going to try to do a whole course?
Well, I mean, they have a record for the fastest around the course, but that's years ago with Steve Scott, the Great American Miler, played a golf course in 27 minutes. So he's credited with like kick-starting the speed golf concept. But the beauty of the, you got to pull up another video. I got one that's going to blow your mind. But the beauty of the speed golf tournament is it has that golf excellence as well as just running around and hockey pucking the ball in. Who cares? It's like the fastest runner is going to win it. But the speed golfers putting together the ability to shoot par golf and run through the course. So if you go Christopher Smith, speed golf, Bandon Dunes, you will see what I consider to be the greatest golf round of all time of any kind, because he shot a 4 under par 68 on a championship golf course. Bandon Dunes, one of the greatest courses in the world. And there's nothing compares to this in terms of, Tiger Woods go shooting 61 on a course is pretty fantastic, but they ain't running around with only a handful of clubs. And so this cool drone high-speed video, he plays his entire round in 3 minutes, so we could probably run it in the background. But if you're just listening, go to YouTube and watch this guy's round of just flawless golf while rushing through the course. So we talk about practice swings and analyzing your shot and reading the green break. This guy is a top golf teacher, one of the top golf teachers in the world, and he uses these speed golf principles to tell people to and this could apply to all different athletic endeavors. Is like, get out of your head and get out of that over-analytical mindset and just feel it and, go with the flow and like kind of bring out your natural athletic ability in whatever you're doing. And that's when you can, perhaps surpass that, methodical approach where you're too deliberate and too stressed about every little variable.
Do you think Tiger Woods has the greatest comeback story of all time?
Oh my gosh, yes, for an athlete, not even close. I mean, there's nothing. He fell so far, and
I agree.
Physical,
I actually was kind of shocked that it. I guess because like there's so much personal stuff tied in there, but I was kind of disappointed it just wasn't talked about more.
I know, it's weird. I mean,
it's like, man, he really fell hard, and so much stuff got exposed about him, and some people might like, who's going to feel sorry for him because he overcame his own whatever, right? But we all fuck up, we all mess up. This guy messed up, and it seemed like he caused a lot of his own problems, right? But we've seen this happen a lot with celebrities, and we've seen this a lot with people that are in positions of power. And I just thought it was like, man, I've never seen anything like it before. I thought it was really, really awesome to see him come back and win. And who knows what he'll do now? He'll probably come back and win a few more,
Well, I mean, what did he come back and win at? He won at this sport, this monster that he created. Because when he stepped into golf, remember, he was hitting the ball 25 yards past these lazy, soft, quote-unquote athletes where they're challenged of being an athlete or not.
Yeah,
and
none
these
of them
guys
were lifting or anything, right?
Yeah, they're very wealthy guys who hit the ball around the golf course. It's a country club sport. We know the demographics are very narrow, and these privileged kids grew up to be great golfers, and they made all this money. But the athleticism and the competitive intensity, I mean, yeah, lifting weights and all that's great, but I identify this guy came in with a killer competitive intensity and said, I'm going to turn this sport upside ass down and start dominating like no one's ever dominated and forcing all these new generation of people, including guys like Brooks Koepka. That dude might have been a minor league baseball player for all we know. Or what's his name? Gary Woodland that just won the U.S. Open. He played Division II basketball. And now he's out there winning the U.S. Open. There wasn't not too many, athletes of that caliber merging into golf in the previous generations. And that's why, this major count. Is he going to catch Jack Nicklaus? Who cares, man? That's like comparing Wilt Chamberlain once scored 100 points in a basketball game. Yeah, you know who showed up for the opposing team? It was like 2 guys from the laundry that were delivering the uniforms.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was a great achievement by Wilt, but Kobe Bryant in the modern NBA scoring 81 points in a single game where his team was behind and playing competitively in December, where every game counts. That is by far the greatest basketball achievement of a single game scoring record. So I don't like going back and comparing this, lifetime record. I think Tiger's the greatest athlete of all time, and that was the greatest comeback. And I say he's the greatest athlete because, the U.S. Open is truly an open, and there's 9,000 people that sign up for the U.S. Open. Did you know that? Like they have qualifying anyone who's a good player can get in. There's a qualifying tournament in Sacramento, and if you get first or second out of 140 guys in Sacramento, you go to regionals, and if you get the first 20 out of those 140 guys, you go to sectional and all that. So the field is extremely competitive, and he's dominated the sport like no other individual sport we've ever seen. And so like the team sport guys, I know Tom Brady has many Super Bowls, but there's only 30 starting quarterbacks in the NFL. So I kind of put it on a different level of like he's part of a system that's been very successful. But as far as individual athlete, Tiger Woods and then Usain Bolt dominating the most competitive athletic event on the planet by far is the 100-meter sprint. Like every kid on this planet has raced the 100-meter sprint at some point. Mm-hmm. So I guarantee you he is the fastest guy that's ever lived. We've found him.
Somebody like Michael Phelps is obviously on another level too, but swimming is a interesting sport where you could rack up a lot of gold medals a bunch of different ways, right? It's not to discredit anything, but like he got 22 gold medals. You can't even really do anything remotely close to that in any other sport. The only sport you can get like a lot of gold medals like that would be something like swimming.
Yeah, and it's so who cares? Like why compare his medal count to, Carl Lewis had 9 gold medals, but he did it over 12 years in the long jump and the 100 and the 200 and the relay. I mean, just mastery is fantastic. Yeah.
There's a ridiculous amount of gold medals. I think it's over 20.
Carl Lewis? Oh, you mean
Michael Phelps? Yeah, he's just got endless gold medals. Yeah.
What kind of because you wrote that book about Tiger. What was it called again?
How Tiger Does It.
How Tiger Does It. So you pretty much said he changed the athletic landscape of golfers. Now we have more athletic golfers training, but is it also the strength training aspect of it?
I think everybody, especially mainstream media, overplays that tremendously. And it's a big help that these guys are fit now and they're working out in the gym and they're hitting the ball farther. But I turn on the TV, I still see fat guys winning big checks. Yeah. And in Tiger's case, I contend that he overtrained severely because his unregulated competitive intensity sort of got the better of him. So what made him great and made him the most insatiable competitor and victor we've ever seen in sports, where he wasn't satisfied with just winning 4 tournaments in a row. He wanted that 5th one with deathly competitive intensity. But if you read the books about him, these kind of tell-all books that his former teacher Hank Haney wrote, the guy's up every single day, supposedly running 3 miles in 19 minutes like every day, which is fast, and then getting in the gym, and then going to the range and hitting hundreds of balls, and then having lunch, and then going out and playing, and then going back in the gym again. It was too much. It was totally unnecessary for a golfer, and look how much time of his career he lost. So if you look at like his longevity achievement, it sucked. He got operated on every other year, and he's had 20 surgeries, and he's pieced together by tape, and he arguably could have been a lot better if he just toned things down and been smarter about his training. It's just totally unnecessary. So that's kind of an unusual view, but I strongly think that he overdid it.
He started at a really young age, too. I mean,
2.
Yeah. 2. I didn't realize it was that young.
He was on Michael Douglas' show, the variety show, hitting a putt in. But it's like you take that mindset and that quest to achieve the highest level, and he broke down his swing a few times. Golfers know that he changed his swing while he was the best player in the world, and he did it for the future improvement, even though he was the best player in the world. Why are you changing your swing? What are you talking about? Is Steph Curry going to alter his release of his shot to change his wrist flex when he's making more shots than anyone ever? No, but Tiger did it 3 separate times. But it was having that, like, some compelling challenge all the time to keep him juiced up was really super important. So that happened to be overtraining, and that's too bad. But you can't turn off some of those knobs and keep the other ones on full blast. So we have to just take it as it came. Same with Jordan and Kobe Bryant. They were apparently assholes to some of their teammates at times. Well, too bad about that. But, they're trying to win the title. And so some of that stuff falls by the wayside. And guess what? I think Kobe, if he had been nicer and more supportive to certain teammates with certain personalities, he would have got more titles. But you can't turn it off. So,
yeah, he's the Black Mamba, right? He's tough to deal with. I've heard that from a bunch of different people, and then I know he had these like things with Shaq all the time, and they always seem to be at each other's throat. That's got to cause a lot of stress. You also wrote a book about Lance Armstrong as well, right? And then you, in the case of Lance Armstrong, you're friends with him. You hung out with him quite a bit, right? So what are some things you learned from somebody like Lance Armstrong, who, is one of the greatest endurance athletes of all time?
Yeah, thanks. We predate his cycling career and his emergence as one of the great leaders. So Lance actually started in triathlon. That was his first, prominent sport, where he rose onto the professional circuit at the age of 15 years old. He was racing against the top guys in the world. It's crazy. I mean, I first read magazine articles about him. I'm like, this has got to be fake. This kid must have jumped in on the course. How can a 15-year-old race with these top pros? Wow. But when he was 15, 16, 17 years old, he was a pro racer on the circuit, making money, and then going to high school in Plano, Texas in his off time. And then he went into opportunities in cycling, became world champion in cycling at the young age of 21, which is historic, and then had his cancer and all that thing. And then he came into his sort of reemergence as a Tour de France rider rather than a one-day rider. But just spending time around him, what I appreciated was like that focus and that ability to compartmentalize his life, where rough things were going on, but he was still out there putting in time on the bike and competing. And so to pull some of these insights, which is what I did in the book, How Lance Does It, just like How Diger Does It, I pulled insights in about what we can use to better our lives. And one of the things Lance was really good at was saying no. And most of the outside world thought he was a jerk because he didn't want to sign this many more autographs, or he refused to come to this public appearance that we were trying to get him to because the agenda seemed too stressful to him. And so he was like, quote unquote, difficult person to deal with. But I realized after dealing with him as part of my job, my company sponsored him. So I would organize these events and try to negotiate the agenda. And his agent, Billy Stapleton, good friend of mine, would say, no, 2 hours is it. We're not hanging around any longer than that. But we're paying you a ton of money and we want a glad hand with some more, top customers. No. And if he didn't say no 1,000 times, he wouldn't have got to that yes, which was, you got to win the tour, man. The Postal Service operation was 50 employees, 25 riders, 25 full-time employees, giant buses, $7 million a year budget, and all that would have vaporized if he didn't win the tour every year, because U.S. people don't care who wins the tour unless it's an American dude. Mm-hmm. So he had this tremendous pressure on him, but it didn't seem like it. And I'd ask him questions. I was interviewing him for this book, and I'm like, how do you deal with the pressure? And he's like, well, I don't really feel pressure because I get all the hard work done that I'm supposed to do, and we're very focused, and everyone has their role on the team. So why should I feel pressure? He goes, I think the guys who feel pressure are the backup guys that are supposed to do the job for him and give him the water, because if they screw up, their heads are rolling. They're gone. And so, like, he feels less pressure than the up-and-coming rider who's just trying to hand him the water on time. And I'm like, that's a really refreshing perspective. I like that. And another thing I asked, these things have changed my life, these interactions with him. One of them was we were down in Austin, and I was having him sign a bunch of autographs and crap. I was always packing stuff for him to sign as part of my job. I was like mooching his time and energy, and he had this sneezing attack. This is May in Austin, Texas. If you're from there, it's like allergy capital of the world. It's pretty brutal. And he starts sneezing, like nonstop. So I'm like protecting my posters so he doesn't get sneeze on it. And I said, man, how do you deal with this allergy scene down here? It is terrible. I mean, this morning I tried to run around the lake and I thought I had asthma. It was so gnarly. And he's, returning to sign. And while I'm talking about the allergies and the bad weather, he looks up at me and he just goes, quit bitching. And then he starts signing again. And I chuckled just like you guys just did that, And then later, like I was by myself that night after this whirlwind day and I'm just reflecting on everything. And I'm like, you know where we were? We were at the gathering of cancer survivors that his Live Strong Foundation puts on. So he was there to motivate and inspire and speak to the cancer community and the top fundraisers and all. That was what the event was all about, that I was here complaining about the weather outside in Austin, Texas. And I thought, and his comment was...
Too many flowers are blowing around. That's what you're complaining about, right?
I mean, but, his comment was, it was straight up. He looked me right in the eye and goes, quit bitching. Very, very serious. And, of course, I laughed it off and all that. But I thought, how dare I come to a cancer event and complain about the weather to a cancer survivor himself who's been through so much hell and doing such good work for the cancer community and all that. And so from that point on, I resolved that I would never, ever again complain about the outside weather, no matter what. If it's 106 degrees, guess what? A lot of people in the hospital beds, it's not 106, it's 72 all the time, every single day. So let's go out in the 106 and soak it up and get a little sweat going, maybe. Then you can go jump in my chest freezer cold plunge. You're invited anytime, you guys. Come on, it's just a few minutes down the highway. That'll take care of the 106 and the refreshing jump in a cold river, and you're freezing cold and you're shivering when you get out. It's a wonderful experience. It's all wonderful. It's wonderful to go running in the rain. I'm not going to complain about running in the rain. I want to get pounded by the rain. My dog doesn't care about the rain. They love going out, rain, shine, snow, whatever. So just that little example about the weather, which we can all relate to because we like to commiserate and complain. Never again. You catch me complaining about the weather, I'll give you a crisp $100 bill because there's no complaints here.
You know, and thinking about that kind of stuff when you do end up complaining, something that you might want to think about, if you can think before you speak, is, how's this going to really help anybody? Like, is this going to help me? Like, sometimes you got shit to talk about. Like, so maybe something happened, and maybe you do need to communicate with someone about it because you need to get something off your chest. But, is it going to really help that you complain to somebody that you got a iced coffee instead of a hot coffee or something you ordered? I mean, it's probably not going to. Yeah, probably not going to be beneficial to anybody.
Yeah, the great relationship experts. I love talking about this topic on I have my Get Over Yourself podcast, and I forced my fiance to come on there, and we do shows together. It's called the Mia Moore Show. That's her nickname. But these great relationship experts that I like to reference and live by. You can say anything you can dispense any feedback with loving kindness. As a leader of a team here at work, someone can really badly screw up, and you can still tell them with loving kindness, hey, you threw me under the bus there. Whatever you want, whatever you need to say, that's you can't be beating around the bush. But those are kind of things that are so easy to live by and make the world a better place. Yeah.
Are you lifting nowadays?
Yeah, I got my hex bar deadlift, which has been my favorite thing ever. And I'm really big on this concept of micro workouts, some people are calling them, or Dr. Phil Maffetone calls them slow weights. And the idea is like, I pass by that thing in my side yard and I go do one set and I go about my business. So it's not a 5x5 day, which I'll do once in a while. I'm not doing that many long duration workouts because they kind of get me tired. And I also do my sprinting, and I'm just, I'm trying to keep in shape. But like to raise up from this baseline where, I didn't work out today, or yeah, I jog for 20 minutes and that's it. Now, every single day I do my morning flexibility, mobility routine. It takes 12 minutes. It's really tough. It's like a core workout and leg swings and things like that. And I'll do a few or, 3 or 4 sets total, let's say on a bad day. I'll do a couple sets of deadlift, and I'll do a couple sets of pull-ups. It doesn't count as a workout. Who cares? I'm just walking under the closet door and I'm like, all right, I'll just knock one out. And so if you can get I feel like a more active life, we're not talking about workouts or gym or anything else, just more active life and breaking up periods of writing, for example, with a set of pull-ups. To me, I think it's really helped because then when it's time to go do a workout, even if last week I went to the gym one time. I went there once, had a good workout. I did some stuff that I do every day and in a workout nature. But if I hadn't done this many sets and this many deadlifts, I'd be a sorry ass, and I'd get more sore and all these things that I've struggled with over time because I'm like sitting around writing a book and then trying to go do deadlifts is not the same. So I like putting that plug in for anybody, especially if we're intimidated by, an all or nothing mindset about working out, which so many people are. Like, yeah, I haven't worked out because my gym moved, or, what? What are you talking about? Yeah, so.
That makes a lot of sense. I like that. I think that's great. Why not just make it easy for yourself? I went and spent some time with Kyle Kingsbury about a year ago. I went to his house, and he had like some yoga mats that were just in front of the TV, but they, it wasn't. They weren't like rolled out mats. They were like almost like wrestling mats. They were just there all the time. I was like, nice. Oh yeah, it's like where we stretch. Like that's their style of watching TV. They didn't have cable. They just had like they had a TV, and it had like a DVD playing of animals and stuff because they love nature and all this stuff. So it was really cool to see like they take their lifestyle and they bring it inside their house, and it's sitting right there. And they're like, oh, there's a kettlebell over there. There's some bands for stretches, and They're not, of course, they're fitness people, but you don't have to be a fitness person to set something up like that yourself. Why not make it easier? Why not make the arrangement so, well, yeah, I could just, every time I walk by that, or, I can be reminded that I need to do that later today. Maybe I should swing that thing around for 5 minutes straight.
Right.
What if you swung a kettlebell around for 5 minutes straight? You'd be exhausted.
Right.
That'd be some great exercise for the day.
Yeah. 1 minute. Yeah. I mean, if there's some block in your game, let's just lower that bar all the way down. And, can you make a commitment to go 1 minute? 1 minute a day.
I preach a lot about a 10-minute walk.
Nice. Yeah.
It doesn't have to necessarily be 10 minutes, but at least 10 minutes is a good start. And why not do a couple of them every day? You got 10 minutes to go for a walk.
If you got a dog, you should be arrested if you don't.
Right.
I mean, really, you owe it to the dog,
Yeah.
and then you owe it to yourself too. So, I mean, these are things that I think are rising in importance like never before, and it's great to see that. So then you mix I got to mix the more serious workouts in, I think, because I'm doing good on my fitness lifestyle, but I want to get in there. I'm going to try your 4:30 a.m. workout. I guess I'm compelled to if that's when it's happening here.
We'll get that done. What are some things? Mark Sisson is somebody I look up to quite a bit, and he executes at a really high level when it comes to business, when it comes to staying in shape, and when it comes to spreading the good word of nutrition and health and all these different things. What are some things that you learned from him and speaking to him for the last 30 years?
Yeah, I don't know. Mark, do you watch the show? If you do, I'm going to give away some
Probably
of your secrets,
only when he was
man,
on it, I bet.
Because I love you. So I'm going to tell everybody what the privilege that I've experienced hanging out and giving some life-changing insights. And, what I see with him is like, his brand, right? His motto is to live awesome. That's what's on the label of the mayonnaise and the salad dressing. And his public persona is the same as who he really is. And I'm telling the truth. I've hung around with him for a long time, and I've seen him in private. And he's the same guy that is at the trade show running late, and someone comes up to him and says, "Hey, Mark, I got to tell you something. You changed my life. I was unhealthy, and thank you so much." And he's looking them in the eye, and he's sincerely appreciative of that connection. We did our first PrimalCon retreat, the weekend festivities where we have experts coming in and doing presentations, and we feed them the primal food. And we had these great events that we did like 9 of them across North America over a several year period. We don't do them anymore, but they were really great. And the first one, we ended up at the end having 100, 150 people these days. The first one, there was 33 people that signed up to come hang out with Mark Sisson on a weekend up in Oxnard. And he got up to address the people at the end, and he started tearing up, and he said, I wrote this blog, and he's sitting at his computer all day writing this blog for several years, but never really connected in the level of actual humans coming and interacting, because it was all a blog. It was all the internet, and he had plenty of accolades and people on the forum, love this, love that, but it was different. And he cracked seeing the power and the beauty of coming together as a group from disparate areas all over. So he's got that sensitivity and that authenticity, which, guys in his position, it's maybe sort of rare. I think some people are not really walking their talk, but they're really good at talking. And that kind of annoys me and you guys too, because we come from the athletic world where you're like, all right, you're shaved down, you're pretty big, and are you full of shit, or are you actually an athlete? You want to show me something, or you just want to parade around with your tight clothes, And boy, we would scoff, in the endurance scene. We used to go try out for commercials. We were training in LA, and my friend had an agent, and we'd get these, a call for a triathlete commercial that could be a lucrative national opportunity. So of course you're going to go waste your afternoon sitting in a room, and we'd just ride our bikes over there to the call in Hollywood. And then, we'd be these skinny professional triathlete guys are showing up for this commercial, and you go in there and everybody's just perfectly built, jacked up, but they're not really triathletes, because triathletes are skinny freaks, a real triathlete. But for the commercial, of course, you're going to give it to the actor polished person wearing the fake bike shorts and the fake bike top and all that thing. And, that was kind of funny, because they always beat us out for the jobs. They're like, "Don't you want a real athlete? Excuse me, can any of you here ride more than 20 miles without getting tired?" Yeah. So as an aside, but what Mark does really well is he's super competitive and tight with his game. And in that entrepreneurial scene, it's cutthroat and it's difficult, and there's a lot of stress and a lot of complexity. But at the same time, he knows how to enjoy his life. So when he unplugs and we're out socializing at lunch or dinner or whatever, it's coming back down to a different level. And I think that's really difficult for a lot of people, especially the higher the stakes get, where you're ruminating and those thoughts are eating at you while you're down there at your kid's soccer game, supposed to be cheering for your kid, watching him play soccer, but instead you're thinking about the spreadsheet that was off. And we need to be able to, just unplug and let go. But at the same time, give it all you got when it's time to give it all you got. Instead, I mean, there's some live awesome dudes that have credit cards maxed out and they're surfing in Baja right now. So props to you. But if that's not really most appealing, we want to win on different levels so you can really enjoy your life while you succeed.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing that. Anything else? Guys, all good? Hey, thanks so much for coming on the show. We'll have to have you in the gym one of these days. Get some training in. You're just you're not too far away. You're in Auburn?
Sacramento.
Oh, you're in Sacramento.
Beautiful Sacramento, the River City.
You're right here in Sacramento.
I know, man. I'm glad we finally met. It's
Yeah.
like I've heard about the free gym forever and ever, and now I'm here. And it's the real deal. Come to Sacramento. Do a pilgrimage, people.
Hell yeah.
It's freaking free.
Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later.